Today with Ari and James, Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Welcome into a Fanatic Friday edition of Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, brought to you by our friends at Modelo. He is Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. T-Chains is back in the house. Taman Turner on the controls. On the audio side, our guy Anthony behind the scenes on the video side on a Fanatic Friday, Big 12 Radio. This is the Big 12. This is a different league. What's up, my friend? What do you got going on this weekend?
Talking to me?
Or Taman or Anthony, but yeah, mostly you.
Yeah. No, excited. Should be a wet camping trip out in Glen Rose, Texas, just outside Fort Worth, a little park called Dinosaur Valley. Legend has it there's actual dinosaur tracks at Dinosaur Valley.
Tracks?
Yeah.
What about fossils?
Yeah.
Because that'd be really cool.
Yeah. All of it.
You guys
Everything.
should just spend all weekend digging for fossils.
Yeah, it's an archaeological dig for sure.
That'll keep those kids entertained for a good 48 hours.
Can I tell you something that's in the other camp out? So I've got two kids. They both in their schools have groups to get together of dads and go on campouts twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. With the fourth grade group, which is the group I'm going with today, I think we did this like when they were young, maybe, kindergarten. But this first grade group, the dads continue to do it, and I'm wondering if they're setting their kids up for failure, which is they will bring arrowheads that they've purchased on Amazon.com, okay? And then what they'll do is, be like, oh, you should go look for arrowheads to the kids, and then they'll drop them on the ground all over the place.
Strategy.
So it's like, oh, isn't that cool? Like the kid's going to find an arrowhead while camping, and they're going to love that. But it's like, I don't know, 4 straight campouts of doing it. It kind of feels like once was fine, but if you just keep doing it, kid's going to falsely think that every camping trip he goes on, there's like arrowheads everywhere.
Totally.
It's kind of not how it works.
Those kids are going to be 35 years old, married with 2 of their own, looking for arrowheads.
No, trust me, they're here. I used to find them all the time with my dad. You're going to find them.
I found dozens of arrowheads. There has to be some. Yeah, that's taking the lie maybe a bit too far.
A bit too far. Like the
I'm
first
with you.
time, cool, but come on, guys. Let's save it for actually finding real arrowheads, which may or may not exist.
Let's blend up those creative juices into something else.
So anyways, I purchased a bunch of used dinosaur fossils on Amazon.com, and I'll be hiding them for the kids to archaeologically dig up today.
Fantastic.
No, but it's supposed to rain all day, especially where we're going. So that should be interesting.
Yeah, so what happens then?
Have you ever gone camping before? You don't strike me as a camper.
I've gone camping before.
You don't strike me as a Boy Scout.
I was in Scouts until I split my chin open and had to stay in a tent with a bunch of, there was a insect infestation, and I was out after that. It's a core memory.
An insect infestation.
Yeah, I don't know what they were. They were big,
or
they
as
were
it's
loud.
known, the
Not just
outdoors.
No. This was a whole thing. Others were commenting. I checked out. Have I been camping since? Yes. Is it?
What's with all these ants?
No, they weren't ants. Ants the size of bats.
Were they flying?
Yes, they were flying.
Were they cicadas?
buzzing. I don't know what they were.
Do you know what cicadas are?
Yes, I know what a cicada is.
You're getting very worked up.
Second grade.
I'm just asking questions here.
Terrified. This is a very traumatic event in my life.
Wow. So last time you went camping
Ultimately,
was
I
second
blame
grade?
my dad. We weren't prepared.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. I think we were
100%.
just sleeping on whatever the camp was providing.
Yeah. No, you can't do that. You gotta be prepared. You gotta bring. I mean, I've got cots and not exactly blow-up mattress, self-inflating mattresses, blow-up mattresses with condensation. They go down.
Sounds way cooler.
Yeah. Actually, some of the dads that are in this fourth grade group rent RVs for this.
See, that's legit.
But that's not camping. That's RVing. So we have probably 20 dads in tents and then 8 dads in RVs, in 4 different RVs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my camping experience was more RV based. wasn't like full RV. It was like one that you attach to a pickup.
Yeah.
But I remember he had to pull up, and then I had to like help level it, and I'm eyeballing it, and it was very stressful, very intense. I felt like this could go horribly wrong. Why am I in charge of this?
You got to level it. You got to hook the water up. You got to hook the electricity. There's a lot of things you got to do with it.
Just went in the lake all weekend, so it was fine.
So you even take the kids camping?
No. We're thinking about doing something adventurous this summer. You know, maybe do a little log cabining.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
We're thinking about it.
There you go.
We'll see.
Very intense.
Dude, and now I'm even more intimidated by the whole idea because of how much of a pro you are.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you should be.
So, like, I wouldn't remember a quarter of the things that you've shared on this show about what makes camping excellent. I couldn't do it.
If you're in a cabin, it's not exactly, like, you'll be fine.
Right.
You know, it's not exactly camping.
Yeah, we need, like, no margin for error.
Yeah.
The turnover margin's got to be deep. Like, we cannot be making any type of mistakes or be responsible for any mistakes taking place because they will happen.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either. But you know who might? Eugene Rapay from the Iowa State Des Moines Register, who's going to join us here around 7:45 because TJ Otzelberger signed a massive contract and will make bank at Iowa State. We had a youth soccer game last night. It was way too intense. Your kids play soccer?
No. In fact, that's one of the greatest achievements in my adult life is having kids that don't like soccer.
Dude.
Which I enjoy soccer. I'm excited about the World Cup, but like youth soccer, I'm out on.
Yeah.
Totally in on pro soccer and like the highest level of it, which is not MLS, but out on kids soccer. So like it's the first sport that both of my kids were like, I don't want to play anymore. And you know, sometimes you want to like provide a little bit of resistance, you know, like, well, you got to be resilient, kid, and like, oh, things aren't going your way. But with soccer, it's like, perfect, great, we're done, awesome, oh, great. We won't sign up again.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't even like, it was like, I'm thinking about, oh, perfect, oh, great, just stop there, awesome, I love it, yeah, done.
I don't like soccer. Okay, all right, we'll sign it up. We're out. Yeah, I think we're headed down that path. One of our three boys that play soccer, they have announced their pending retirement. They'll be retiring at the end of the season. I think the fact that we're 0-6 might be contributing to that in some way. But we had a soccer game last night, and, dude, like, we thought it was going to get rained out. It rained most of the day in the area, but no, they still played, and it was just total chaos.
Oh, brutal.
We haven't scored a goal in 3 weeks. We got beat 5-0, and that was close. That was a close one. We felt like we were in this one. But I'm tracking, like, the goalie. I'm not tracking saves. I'm tracking emotional outbursts. The kid burst into tears at least 3 times while play was going on.
The goalie.
The goalie.
Not
yes.
exactly the best characteristics of a goalie.
Supposed to be your anchor.
Yeah.
Right? First goal comes through, just immediate meltdown. Burst into tears. I'm like, this thing's going to fall apart quickly. And then the parents, man, just shouting. Like, they can't hear you. They're 7 years old. Keep that in mind. These are 7-year-olds. All right? We've got parents like, run fast. Win the ball. That's what I heard 1,000 times. Win the ball. Like, think that through your brain before you shout that to your 7-year-old. Like, win the ball? Are you going to lose the ball? Like, they are running at full speed.
To the ball.
To the ball. Win the ball. Don't kick the ball. We're not concerned about spacing. Like, we've got bigger problems than win the ball. It was too much. And then after the game, one of the parents is super animated. This might be the parent that was yelling win the ball for the full hour. They play the full hour, by the way. I was keeping track. I thought maybe we'd trim some time off those quarters. No.
Absolutely not. No.
Full hour.
Got to get that full hour's worth.
After the match, like, we're all packing up our chairs, and this parent is super aggressive, yelling at the other parents to form the tunnel. You know, like the tunnel the kids run through? She's shouting at all of us to form the tunnel. And she said, this is their favorite part. Like, that might be another problem. Their favorite part shouldn't be the post-game tunnel
Wait,
run.
why a post-game tunnel? Shouldn't it be a pre-game
Yeah,
tunnel?
like, let's fire them up.
Yeah.
Let's get them out there. The game's over. We just got decimated.
Don't ask me to do anything post-game. The car is already warming up, and I'm ready to go. Like, we're going.
Not here. No.
Yeah.
She was like full post-game operations staff locked in.
And where does the tunnel
forming
go?
that
Where does the tunnel lead to?
It just leads to the out of bounds. Like it
Just the other side?
just circle back.
I don't know if there's like, go to the meeting, go to like the post-game discussion the coach is going to have.
No, we're
Tunnel to nowhere.
We're just doing tunnel stuff. It was a mess. I had so many frustrations.
Yeah, youth sports can be very frustrating. It can be very frustrating. I'll say that. Yeah. Was reading about there's I guess some leagues where there's like an issue with parents getting too drunk during youth sports games. Yeah, which is I didn't know that was a thing. I was I hate this saying now, but I was today years old when I realized you could drink at youth sports events. You can't, you shouldn't, but
That's frowned upon.
yeah, I mean, what's in that coffee cup? Oh, just some whiskey. Just a little bourbon.
Well, part of the reason we're on a new soccer team, we had issues with that. Yeah. Yeah, it was the coach.
Oh,
That was the coach.
got it.
Yeah, not good. Not good. Delicate situation.
No tunnels with that coach.
Oh, there were a lot of tunnels.
Oh.
And a lot of other things.
Okay.
Too. But yeah, that was a no-go.
Got it.
So we decided new team, probably best.
Yeah.
But we're paying for it. We're paying for it in the wins and losses column right now.
Building good character,
Yeah.
though.
All right, on this.
Or driving him away from soccer, which is maybe more important.
And I think we're headed that way. Like,
Yeah.
there was a full-blown negotiation with his shoelaces. I think we are on our way out.
What was the negotiation?
We couldn't get him tied. It was a problem. Knots weren't right. Whole thing. You got to wear those shin guards. They're very bulky. What size shoe do you wear? It's a mess. All right, it's a Fanatic Friday. TJ Alzberger has a new contract. We'll discuss that with our guest here in about 25 minutes. What's top of mind? Like, there's a lot of CSC stuff out there. There's a lot of eligibility stuff out there. Ross Dellinger's all over. I dove into this CSC participation agreement because,
Ooh.
frankly, I don't really understand it.
Yeah.
Like, the CSC, the
The
Deloitte
College
House,
Sports Commission.
the House versus NCAA settlement. So I didn't realize that schools have to opt in, which, what does that mean for the schools that don't opt in? And you've got the Power Four conferences creating the CSC to essentially police this new world of athletics. But now, and when I say that, enforce the cap, oversee NIL deals, manage all the roster compliance stuff. But now you have this legal document that essentially gives the CSC all the authority and all the power to do all of this. And there's 3 leagues that are in, according to Ross Dellinger. The Big Ten is still holding firm on we're out. But 68 schools need to fully sign this document. Otherwise, the CSC is just essentially this watchdog without any real bite in the thing.
So do we know if any of the Power 5 schools or Power 4 schools have signed this? Because I did see in the piece that Dellinger wrote that like the Big 12 is unanimous in agreement with it. However, I haven't confirmed that they've actually signed it. The teams have actually signed it.
No.
Right, so you had this House settlement, okay? We know about the House settlement. It was supposed to fix everything. But if you listen to us and what we talked about when it came to this, it wasn't going to fix anything, but yet they still moved on with it. As part of the House settlement, the creation of the College Sports Commission, which was supposed to police the rev share, which was the biggest part of the House settlement, right? That was what was going to fix all these issues in NIL. It was going to be this House settlement that the College Sports Commission was going to police the rev share, and as it's turned out, it doesn't appear to be very effective. As is very obvious, teams are going above and beyond the cap in a quote-unquote legal way by promising certain dollars first, then coming up with those dollars second. And you can easily apply those dollars in an NIL way once they're there. That's what's happening, right? So you've got a bunch of teams spending above the cap. They're promising certain dollar amounts to players, then going and finding the money, or they found the money And then they find the money and the NIL opportunity there, which is he's going to promote this business or he's going to do that, this, the other. It's all a shell game here. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with it. It notates a level of market value. Like, I know that there's a lot of money that's being thrown out there, and I know that, like, if you're not making millions, which most of us aren't, I can understand how that can be disconcerting and upsetting, but it's what the market dictates. Right? The value and the demand for athletes is so high right now, and the best ones. It's why, like, in the basketball transfer portal, James, like, the amount of total spending has just continued to increase. I think it was like $1 billion total last year. It's going to be like $2 billion total this year. Like, we're talking about big time money that's being spent because the market dictates that that's the money that's out there.
You know how many power conference schools have signed?
0.
None.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Not a single school.
That's what I thought.
So we missed the December 3rd deadline. And some of the legal concessions are massive. And the schools, specifically in the Big 12 in the state of Texas, the Texas Attorney General is very much telling these schools, do not sign this. And Texas Tech's General Counsel has already said, yeah, we're out. We're not going to sign it, right? So some of the language, schools waive their right to a jury trial. They must be bound by the determinations made by the College Sports Commission CEO. Schools agree to support, advocate for, or lobby any change in federal, state, or local law that would conflict with their obligations under the agreement. Number 2. Number 3, if any school, state official, or associated entity files a lawsuit against the CSC, that school loses all conference revenue for the next fiscal year and is banned from postseason competition in the sport involved.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. Because, and I would imagine that's why most of these schools haven't signed it, that one in particular, because they all want to have the right to sue in the case of many situations. I mean, including, what's interesting is, so there's this rule on ghost transfers right now, right? Well, there will be ghost transfers. It'll be interesting to see what happens then if there's basically, if schools still play the player, if they sue. I mean, there's just this long history now here within recent history that, like, the NCAA keeps losing, and this is another example of it. I mean, this is one of the most hilarious things I've ever heard, right? So you have all the schools that came together to go and lobby to get some sort of settlement here. They got the settlement that they wanted. As part of the settlement, they were supposed to sign this deal, but none of them are signing it, right? It's the irony there is they're the ones who initiated this, agreed to the specifics of the House settlement, and are now basically being like, well, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Now they're like, things are working out pretty well the way they are. I think we're out on that.
Yeah, we're fine. We're totally fine. The rest of college sports, they're screwed, but we're fine.
Crazy stuff.
Well, and I mean, it goes back to the market value thing, right? Like, if schools really felt like it was, quote unquote, out of control, then they would buy into it. But they don't. I mean, they know what's at stake, right? I mean, we're talking about generating revenue. We're talking about the visibility from sports. The stakes have never been higher.
Yeah.
And the money has never been more.
Totally. Somebody asked me the other day, what's keeping Texas Tech from just going and signing Dylan Raiola and bringing him in at quarterback, taking the 8-game suspension or whatever it would be for Joey McGuire, and then just doing it and asking for forgiveness later? It's like, yeah, that's a really good point.
Or
what's keeping them?
What's keeping them from signing Dylan Raiola and then having the NCAA suspend them and then suing the NCAA and saying your rules are archaic and we're not going to agree to them?
Exactly. The wild, wild west. All right, coming up next here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.
I like to think of it as the plentiful East.
That sounds much better. East of Plenty. Coming up next, there is a college basketball program that has inked a first-of-its-kind deal that could change the media landscape when it comes to college hoops in a big way for the foreseeable future. We'll tell you who that is and what's going on coming up round the corner. We are powered by Modelo. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. This is Big 12 Radio exclusively on TuneIn.
Jackson's in trouble down. David Bailey, he is a sack machine. Third and 8.
Big 12 Radio is brought to you, the full-time fan, by Modelo, exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We come to you each weekday, Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 Eastern, 7 to 10 Central Time. Eugene Rapay, who covers Iowa State for the Des Moines Register, is with us at 7:40 Central Time here in about 15 minutes to break down TJ Otzelberger and his massive new contract, which makes him one of the top 10 highest paid coaches in all of college basketball. Ari, speaking of college basketball, so yesterday, Amazon and Amazon Prime, they have entered the college sports arena. They inked a deal with Duke yesterday, a multi-year agreement for Amazon Prime Video to broadcast exclusively 3 Duke neutral site non-conference games per season. So Duke becomes Amazon Prime's first ever collegiate sports partner. They already own a chunk of the NFL, the NBA, the Masters, and college sports just got added to the list. And these are big matchups. November 25th, Duke against UConn in Las Vegas. December 21st, Duke against Michigan at Madison Square Garden. And then on February 20th, Duke against Gonzaga. That game will be played in Detroit. But could this be a sign of the future in Amazon Prime and entering the collegiate landscape?
My first question is, how is Duke getting outside of its ACC agreement with ESPN?
So,
Because, the biggest part of the revenue pie for these schools is what their conferences are getting in their TV rights. Well, this is, I would assume the inventory is sold. How do they get outside of that?
So to answer that question, here's how I think that plays out. These 3 games are all neutral site games where the league doesn't really have, there's not a home team. Does that make sense? I know when it comes to national radio rights, games that are played in neutral locations, it's very much a gray area in terms of who has the rights. So Duke playing UConn in Las Vegas, and then Duke playing Michigan at Madison Square Garden, and then Duke playing Gonzaga in Detroit. These aren't like the Champions Classic, which ESPN has the rights to, and ESPN puts on that tournament with those 4 teams. These are standalone, neutral site games where I think both teams are stepping outside of whatever their conference network agreement is.
When I saw the Madison Square Garden piece, because technically that is a home market, that basically the Duke and ESPN came to some agreement and long term on, well, you have to do that additional, you have to give us additional inventory if you're going elsewhere for inventory.
So they're probably playing multiple games in New York at Madison Square Garden.
So I think there's 2 elements here that are really interesting. First, there's the element of what does this say about the ACC? Would something like this ever happen in the Big 12? Would Kansas look to do something like this? Because they probably could. Or is there too much cohesion in the conference to where they wouldn't want to upset the apple cart? So there's the Duke TV side of this, and then there's the Amazon Prime Video side of it, and how deep they are into sports programming and sports TV. And this is a bad sign for maybe for the public, but definitely for the major networks. For Warner Brothers Discovery, for ESPN. So I just taking a look, Amazon's market cap is $265.15, which is it's basically $2.7 trillion. Okay. Disney's is 181.3 billion. Okay, so 181.3 billion versus 2.8 trillion
with a T.
Okay, so a billion is a big number. My very tiny brain can barely process how big of a number a billion is.
Yeah.
And then it takes 999 billion to get to a trillion. And they're at 2. So is Apple, by the way. Apple is also, they're almost at 4 trillion in market cap. This is not a joke. Apple's current market cap as of April 2026 is $3.9 trillion. Okay, so as much money as Amazon has, and they have a lot, 2.79. Apple has more. What this means is they have infinite amount of dollars, both of them. So as soon as they want, it's game over for ESPN and everybody else. Because as soon as they want, Amazon could say like, oh, how much are you offering? Oh, that's cute. We'll double it. Oh, you want to come? We'll triple it. Like, the money doesn't matter.
Exactly.
They can spend whatever they want. They're worth trillions of dollars, which doesn't even seem like a real number.
Totally. And I should have led with this because the ESPN wrinkle. So here's how it went down. Amazon, and I think because of their power, put ESPN in a position where ESPN doesn't get bypassed and they have to fight back. They negotiated with Amazon. So Duke, part of the agreement is that Duke will participate in additional ESPN-owned neutral site events in the 27-28 season and the year after in 28-29.
Which is all due to the Madison Square Garden play. From what I read and understand, Detroit and Vegas are outside the ACC market, quote unquote.
Got it.
And so therefore they did not have to basically compensate for those. I did not know that specific part of a television agreement, right? Like that there's actual cities that are included in that, and you play outside those cities. I don't have any knowledge or specifics about a Big 12 deal like that. But again, like part of this I think just speaks to, is the conference cohesive enough to not have this? But this is pretty substantial money.
Big time. I mean, it's going to rake in millions and millions of dollars for the Duke basketball program. I mean, that's the number one headline, is just how much this benefits Duke specifically, and do other schools and brands. There are some big brands in this conference. Do they follow suit?
Well, and it all really goes to, 2030, when most of these TV rights are up. The ACCs will not be, but most of the other TV rights are up. And, the last time this happened, the streaming platforms weren't deep into sports content the way that they are now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I want to say the only, Apple had a deal with MLS, and that was about it.
Yep.
Amazon's deal with the NFL was brand new at that point. So, I mean, it's a long way to say, Amazon has come a long way in sports programming. Amazon seems to be the most invested in having live sports, especially from the standpoint of, not MLS.
Yeah, how many games did Amazon start with the NFL?
I think they initially just had, one or two.
That's what I thought, too.
But then the next season, they had every Thursday night game, and obviously that's the deal they have now, every Thursday night game.
So they've gone from, one or two to they have 17 games, 17 exclusive broadcasts where you can only watch your NFL team by having Amazon Prime.
And they have, I'm pretty sure they have a playoff game, too.
Yep, they have 16 regular season games,
that was the
and they
17th.
have one wild card playoff game where you have to have Amazon Prime to watch your team. Duke fans will have to have Amazon Prime to watch 3 very high-profile non-conference games. And that's the other thing. These are huge games. They're not playing Jacksonville State or Arkansas Pine Bluff. They're playing UConn and Gonzaga and Michigan. By the way, Amazon's advertising, the advertising portion of their business grew 18% year over year in quarter 4 of 24, which is when they had that massive uptick with the NFL. Analysts directly credit live sports for that growth. So it's working for them too.
Yeah, that and your Amazon Alexa that is listening and taking notes, and then selling that data at a much higher rate to other companies. Have you seen that report?
Tell me more.
No, I mean basically that they have people that are notating what you talk about all the time. It's not even just saying, "Hey Alexa." It's at any point it can record what you're doing and saying, including your kids if they're in their room, and then that selling voice information is more valuable in the market than your online habits, which is most of the data that's being sold. So it's I think I saw there's a 70% greater fee to sell data that is voice data, which makes sense.
And considering we talk for 3 hours, I don't know where your phone is, but mine's right here. They've got a lot of data.
Yeah, and that's Apple. I'm sure they're doing the same.
Two of us, yeah. The targeted ads during our nighttime television viewing have been very concerning to me. A lot of like anti-aging ads, a lot of, hey, you're getting older, do you want a home sauna that also doubles as like an ice bath, polar plunge-esque sauna? And I was sitting, I'm like, that does look nice. It's like, that'll take 10 years off my appearance? Okay, let's go.
It's almost like they know you.
It's $30,000? All right,
I'm
fine.
in. Perfect. It's going to make me look a few years younger. Perfect. Totally in.
Our Big 12 top 5 players at each position series continues today with cornerbacks, not defensive backs. We're going to do corners today, and then safeties on Monday. You guys got the text? We all good on that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. Eugene Rapay, who covers Iowa State for the Des Moines Registers, coming up next. TJ Otzelberger inks a 6-year, ginormous contract to be locked in and aims for the long term. We'll break it down with Eugene after this timeout. We are brought to you by Modelo on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios.
Side pressure. Flores felt it, and he's brought down by Jackie Marshall.
Quarterback draw. And Crittenton runs into a wall. Jackie Marshall.
Watch the two defensive tackles in the middle really do work. Number 0, Jackie Marshall. The quickness and aggressiveness right there to disengage from that block and get that tackle for loss.
Third down and 7. Middle run. That had the look of a 4-down play sequence. We'll see if they are going for 4 down below the 35 of Baylor.
Baylor's defense has been able to do.
Levitt. Blitz coming. It could have been worse. Jackie Marshall finally will get credit for the sack.
Jackie Marshall, just watch him, not truly rushing, right? Kind of just waiting to see what he does. He corrals him, grabs that right leg, and puts him to the ground.
Little play action. Hoover eyes downfield. The dump at the last moment to Rodgers.
Himself a ball game, even if he plays go on that third down, really does a nice job.
Big 12 conversation continues here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo. We are ranking our top 5 Big 12 cornerbacks, part of our Big 12 Modelo top 5 players at each position series. We highlight the corners today. But before that, let's head out to Ames, Iowa, to chat with our buddy Eugene Rapay, who covers Iowa State for the Des Moines Register, part of the USA Today network. Good morning, Eugene.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me on. How are you guys doing?
Man, phenomenal, as I'm sure you are as well, with TJ Otzelberger and his massive contract. We haven't really gone over the details and the extent of that, so you have the floor to tell us what he ultimately agreed to.
Yeah, I'm doing good, but probably not as good as TJ Otzelberger. He just signed a new extension that will last through 2036, and it gave him a pretty sizable payday increase. He was making $4 million per year before. Now it's got bumped up to $6 million a year. And it's a deal that lasts till 2036. So TJ Otzelberger in Ames for at least a decade. And the buyout, though, remains the same at $4 million. But other than that, Iowa State has its guy. They've locked in TJ Otzelberger. He's the highest paid coach in the school right now. He even surpassed what Matt Campbell was making before Campbell left for Penn State. So TJ Otzelberger sleeping pretty good these days. $6 million per year, deal through 2036, and it's a big sizable payday that puts him near the top of the Big 12. He's only behind Bill Self now, and I believe it's Bill Self, and there's one more. I know he surpassed Kelvin Sampson and Scott Drew, so he's now number 3 in the Big 12 and in the top 10 most likely nationwide.
Yeah, so where does this come from? We know Iowa State doesn't have the same big budgets that a lot of other programs do. They've had to, the women's basketball program obviously doesn't have the money based on the players leaving. Like, give us a sense of where this is coming from.
Yeah, it just feels like now with football being kind of like a rebuilding phase right now, men's basketball is kind of the premier program. And for Iowa State to keep Otzelberger in town, keep him in Ames seemed like a big priority, especially after the success he's had in recent years. He just took them to the 3rd Sweet 16 under his 5 years there in Ames. And just the success that he's had, he's already ranked up there towards the top with some of the other coaches in program history. He's number 4 all-time in wins. He's got the highest winning percentage. He's got the most AP top 25 wins, most wins against top 10 opponents. So it's like with this guy, and of course you had the recent steam that was picking up with the UNC job rumors, things like that. If you're Jamie Pollard, you want to keep this guy in town, and that just seems like where all this came from to pony up and keep Otzelberger in Ames for however long as they can.
Has there been an uptick, Eugene, in not just, this contract shows that Iowa State has money to spend, but also in terms of they had a massive portal class. Has there been an uptick in NIL for men's basketball?
I think it's that, but also more importantly, the new university president, Dr. David Cook, seems he wants to be very involved in athletics. He wants to see athletics succeed. He's investing in it, and I think that has been also a huge catalyst in this, and also a huge catalyst in why Otzelberger ended up staying and not flirting with those other offers with UNC and whatever it may be, Indiana in previous years. So I think it's just the overall involvement now is increased, and when you have a new university president who's got the alignment with Pollard and Otzelberger and is willing to double down and invest in athletics, I think that Otzelberger sees that, and this is the kind of place that he wants to be in.
Yeah. So what do you think this team will look like next year?
Right now, it's going to look a lot different. You don't have Joshua Jefferson anymore. You don't have Tamin Lipsey. Those felt like 2 big staples. Milo Momcilovic is testing the NBA waters, and if it doesn't go, he's in the transfer portal. So there's going to be a lot of new faces, but there's also going to be some promising ones. They do return Killian Touré. They do return Blake Buchanan as starters, and then Jamarian Bateman, a promising freshman last year, will come back. But other than that, it's going to be a whole new look team. They just got 5 new transfers, a bunch of experienced guys to complement the youth that they're going to be bringing back. And it's going to look completely different, just not having those household names. But I think just for Iowa State, the way that they've been able to predicate their identity on defense and getting guys that are bought into their system, bought into their culture, that should not change. But I'm curious to see what the scoring output will look like. Who will be the leading man now that those three guys, those three all-conference players are gone. And so it's going to look very different. There's going to be a lot of new names to learn, but I think for Iowa State, there's still optimism for, having Otzelberger and what he's shown, but also the 5 players that they brought in seemed like pretty quality guys who excelled at the lower level, which is something that Iowa State has had plenty of success with in the transfer portal in the past, getting those under the radar transfers, getting those guys who've excelled at low to mid major conferences, and then bringing them to the Big 12 where they're able to shine. Like you look at a Curtis Jones, you look at a Keyshawn Gilbert, you look at a Joshua Jefferson. There's a blueprint there. There's a confidence there that they can take these guys, develop them, and take them to another level when they arrive in Ames.
Eugene Rapay is with us from the Des Moines Register here on Big 12 today. When you take over a program that went 2-22 in the previous season, I think it gives you a lot of grace from the fans. But now, like TJ Otzelberger is going into year 6. Iowa State's been as high as number 4 in the AP poll each of the last 3 seasons, and they haven't been past the Sweet 16. So at what point does it become, okay, the Sweet 16 isn't good enough, this needs to be Elite 8 Final Four territory?
I think it's going to be there very soon, sooner rather than later, especially when you look at Iowa State's history. They've only made an Elite 8 one other time. That was in 2000. Sure, they have a Final Four appearance, but that was in 1944 when there were only 8 teams in the NCAA tournament, so completely different ball game than what it was. But, of course, the Sweet 16 runs are celebrated, but now it's what's next. And when you look at now you've given Otzelberger the bag, you've given him the pay increase. That's great. He's accomplished a lot, but now there's going to, of course, be a little more pressure, a little more expectation to also raise the bar in terms of success. I think that this is a fan base that is still very hungry for the Elite 8. They've had a couple of bad breaks, especially in recent years. Last year, they were depleted by injuries in the second half of the year. This season, you get Joshua Jefferson injured in the opening minutes of a first-round game that was pretty much done on paper and was more of a mere formality, and then that kind of hampered the ceiling or lowered the ceiling for this team. So now moving forward, unfortunately, you don't have those marquee guys anymore, but that hunger for the Elite 8 or beyond is still there, and especially considering how the last couple of years have gone for Iowa State, just the misfortunes on the injury front, it's definitely a bitter pill to swallow, but now they move forward, and we'll see what Otzelberger is able to do.
Eugene, last thing from us, when it comes to spring football, what was the number one headline for Iowa State, and any idea of how this team is kind of coming together under a first-year head coach?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing has just been being able to rebuild and lay down a foundation on offense and defense when you welcome over 70 new players. I think that the spring football was productive, and you got to see a showcase at the end to wrap things up. But, of course, you need to see how these pieces play against other schools, other teams. I think that the biggest thing was that there were hints of what the depth chart may look like. It's still very far from locked in. All you know is Jalen Rayner is looking like QB1, and that's got to be the big one for Iowa State to have that face to lead your offense, the Arkansas State transfer. But for the most part, there's still a lot of new faces, a lot of kinks to work out. And more importantly, it's great that the team's bought in, and the brotherhood and culture and whatever words that they want to put out there is going in a positive direction. But once we get to the fall and these games are underway, how is that going to culminate in wins and losses? What's the product going to look like when we see these teams face off against other schools in different colored jerseys and whatever it may be? So there's definitely some optimism, of course, just to see that things are going smoothly for Jimmy Rogers, who has been in this position before. But then you're also cautious, and where do you put the expectations? You need to see it to believe it, and now when we get to the fall, it'll be probably more so put up or shut up.
Yeah, well said. Well, I think having a QB1 is definitely a starting point with Rayner. Appreciate your time, Eugene. Have a nice weekend. We'll talk soon.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.
Eugene Rapay from the Des Moines Register joining us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Just told us that Jalen Rayner is locked in the starting quarterback position this spring for football and for basketball. I mean, this makes TJ Otzelberger one of the highest paid coaches in America. He's now, on pace with a Bill Self and a Coach Cal at Arkansas. $6 million per year, a 10-year extension through June of 2036.
Yeah, Bill Self is the highest paid basketball coach in America at $8.8 million. Dan Hurley is second at $8 million. Calipari at $7.7 million. Izzo at $7 million. Rick Barnes is at 6.2. Todd Golden, Chris Beard, and T.J. Otzelberger are tied at $6 million even. So puts him in the top 6 and makes him second across the Big 12. Kelvin Sampson's at $5.5 million.
And is he top 10, Kelvin Sampson?
9.
So 3 coaches.
Well, he's tied with Tommy Lloyd at 5.5.
So Tommy Lloyd and Kelvin Sampson both crack the top 10. TJ Otzelberger now making just a hair more than Tommy Lloyd with his new deal. I think for Iowa State, though, like this is year 6. When is getting past the Sweet 16? Like that has to be the benchmark, right? They've only been to a one Elite 8 in program history, I think Eugene said, and they've been to 3 Sweet 16s under TJ Otzelberger, but at some point there won't be an injury to a starter in the NCAA tournament, and you have to break through.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say it's hard to look at the time that T.J. Otzelberger's been at Iowa State and feel disappointed.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of, every year where there might be disappointment, it was injuries, I think, that really offset that disappointment, or should. I mean, this team should have been a Final Four team this year. But Joshua Jefferson getting hurt makes sense that they wouldn't even make it past the Sweet 16. So, I have a lot of faith and confidence that T.J. Otzelberger will get to a Final Four. But you're right. For this guy to be the second highest paid coach in the Big 12, with Kelvin Sampson in the Final Fours he's been to, now Tommy Lloyd's been to a Final Four, at some point you got to break through. No excuses.
And much has been made of their portal class, but this is also the highest rated high school recruiting class that Iowa State has ever had. And it's been overshadowed by all the 5-stars coming into this league, 4 of the top 7. But their recruiting class ranks 15th nationally. They're bringing in 3 4-stars in addition to these transfers. And their roster is completely full. They've got a full 15 scholarship players. They're done in the portal. They're doing all their off-season stuff. So you blend those two things together, and Sweet 16 is now like the floor to me.
Yeah.
Are they a top 3 preseason team in the league?
I think so. I mean, look, I think the top 5 are the top 5. Like the same teams that were in the top 5 at the end of the year, it would be hard-pressed to think of anybody else that could crack that top 5 heading into this season. Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas, Houston, and Arizona. And maybe BYU?
6 seed was BYU. No, BYU was like a 10 seed in the Big 12
much
tournament.
lower. Yeah.
6 seed was
UCF? No.
TCU was the 7. They played Kansas.
But I also, Otzelberger also has a great plan. He knows who he is. I think there are elements of him that are just really important. And, kind of knows what the program needs, knows the type of players the program needs to be looking for, has the type of profile in mind. I mean, the transfer portal opened, and it was like they added 5 players right off the bat. Boom, 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 boom. Like, they knew right away the guys they wanted that fit. And, and to your point on the recruiting class, it's a big-time recruiting class. He's got some really interesting players with upside. And I'm sure he looks at it and says, I hope, with our program, these guys will be here for 2, 3, 4 years.
And they
not leave.
Right. So TCU was the 6th seed. Sorry about that. I would say the top 6. And I agree with you on the preseason top 5. But the top 6, I look at, there was a 2-game gap between the 6th and the 7th best team in the Big 12 last year, between TCU and then that log jam of teams that were 9-9. I think there's a pretty hard line in the sand there with those top 6 and those top 5. And I don't see that changing based off of what they've done in the offseason. So I'm with you.
What is interesting, too, is Matt Campbell, I think, made about $5 million last year at Iowa State. You wonder if Iowa State obviously knew long-term that Matt Campbell was probably always going to leave at some point, and then figured that, hey, if they totally invest in T.J. Otzelberger, he's not going to leave. And that's the right investment to make. It's also interesting that, the basketball coaches' annual salaries get close to football coaches, because football, from a revenue driver, is so much more significant than basketball. You almost wonder why. maybe basketball coaches are more meaningful. I don't know. It's interesting though, right? Like when you look at the top, like I want to say the top football coaches in America, probably 11 or 12 million. So more than what the top at basketball are. But in some cases, those numbers are fairly close, which is shocking.
And the gap is much closer than like what the roster rate is. And with Iowa State, it does. You know, it makes me wonder when you see the gymnastics program going away, when you see Bill Finley losing over half his roster on the women's side, which has never happened, and their star player transferring within the league, tells me that a lot of those resources and dollars are sliding towards men's basketball in addition to football. All right, good stuff from Eugene Rapay, who writes for Iowa State, covers Iowa State for the Des Moines Register. Coming up next, it's our Big 12 top 5 players at each position. This is a series that we started last week. Today we highlight the top 5 Big 12 cornerbacks here on Big 12 Today. He's Ari, I'm James, exclusively on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Robertson spins one, 4th down, got it! Senior to senior. Robertson spins one, 4th down, got it! Rush up the middle, Robertson spins one, 4th down, got it! From the mesh point, he pulls, he shoots. For a touchdown, Josh Cameron. Bowl eligibility on the line, and they go to Josh Cameron, like you said, to start and to cap. Class was in the ESPN 300. Robertson, and so that is caught by Cameron. Flag down, you hear Cameron barking and one. I mean, Josh Cameron on the outside, one-on-one. I mean, you got guys straight all the way on. You mentioned it. Does he have full possession of that football? Now he has possession immediately, but watch the ball move here. He's already got being at 70%. He's going to get the catch. I mean, Josh Cameron on the outside, one-on-one. I mean, you got guys straight all the way on. You mentioned it. Play fake, one-on-one coverage, jump ball, flag is out, hits hauled in. Josh Cameron.
This is what we talked about earlier in impact players. He's our guy that they throw the fade to. You see it right here?
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Alongside Ari Timken, I'm James Westling. Catch Ari on social at RE Sports. That's ARI Sports. I'm on social at James Westling. We are powered by Modelo, and there is no off-season for us when it comes to college football and these teams in the Big 12. Part of our college football Modelo series that we continue each and every day. You can hear a replay today starting at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 1 o'clock Central, and then again at 4 Eastern, 3 Central, part of our newcomer series where we highlight the best offensive linemen, newcomers in the Big 12. So that's later on right here on the channel. But Ari, as we put together the top 5 corner backs, defensive backs at the corner position in the Big 12, I think if we did this list last year, it would have been littered with Iowa State, probably Arizona corners. Looks very different this go around. Just collectively, do you think, was there a theme as you put together your list?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how good the Big 12 is going to be at corner. There's definitely some interesting potential with players that joined via the portal, but yeah, it was tough pickings to find a top 5 here. I'm going to be honest with you. I think so far, linebacker is probably the best position on the defense that we've done overall, which is interesting because linebacker was also a very good position this past year when you think about the draft picks that came from linebacker out of the Big 12.
A lot of linebackers, a lot of cornerbacks selected in the recent NFL draft. All right, let's break down our top 5. Taman has the music. Ari, you have the floor. Who's number 5?
I went number 5 with the Oklahoma transfer to Baylor, redshirt sophomore Devin Jordan. Jordan had flashed last year. I mean, he played in 13 games for an Oklahoma defense that was really good. I mean, when you think about that deep defensive backs room at Oklahoma, the fact that he cracked that, yeah, that's huge. So, to me, you know, the production isn't huge. When you look at his numbers, I don't know that it stands out as much, but he played in 13 games and was a rotational piece on a really good secondary at Oklahoma. So, Devin Jordan, number 5 for me.
Interesting, because at number 5 for me, I also have a Baylor cornerback. I go the other side with LeVar Thornton Jr. I do see a massive uptick in Baylor's secondary because of Joe Klanderman. Like, the corners at Kansas State shined under Klanderman. LeVar Thornton Jr. was a 4-star recruit out of high school. He was Baylor's best corner last year. Started all 13 games, had 30 tackles, had 7 pass breakups, had an interception. He played over 500 defensive snaps. Now, his Pro Football Focus coverage grade wasn't elite, but it was much improved from 2 years ago. So I'm almost picking him in the top 5 based off projections that he's going to have a monster year for that Baylor secondary. Again, 4-star recruit. Everybody wanted him. He finished 4th in the state Texas high jump. He's got elite vertical skills, and he stayed home in the Waco area. So looking for a major year from Thornton Jr. at number 5.
Number 4 for me is the Colorado transfer to TCU, Tion Park, 6'1", 180 pounds. It's a guy that spent last year at Colorado but had 2 elite years at Illinois State, where he was one of the best corners in the Missouri Valley Conference. Had 12 passes defensed in 2024, 39 tackles, 11 pass breakups, an interception, and a forced fumble. So this is a guy that has 1,100 college football snaps. So for me, it's the experience that he brings to the table that is going to be a huge boost for a TCU secondary that needs the experience. Tion Parks for TCU, number 4 for me.
Number 4 for me, I go out to Provo, and BYU loaded secondary. Trey Alexander III. He was a decorated sprinter in high school. He had offers out of high school from Ole Miss, West Virginia, Houston, NC State, Georgia Tech, multiple ACC schools. His dad played for the Philadelphia Eagles and caught passes from Randall Cunningham. I'm going with Trey Alexander, who played 530 defensive snaps as a sophomore last year, had 5 PBUs, had a sack, had an interception, competed every day in practice with Evan Johnson, who's also one of the top guys in the Big 12. This is his 3rd year at BYU. He's 6'2", could be a breakout candidate to be all-league. Trey Alexander III, number 4.
Nice. Number 3 for me, we've got some good variety across both of our lists. Caleb Patterson, the Illinois defensive back, transfer to Kansas State. another guy that has, produced and been on the field at the Power 5 level in the Big Ten. And so, I mean, when you look at my bottom three guys, they're all potential with terms of like having played significant snaps on big-time programs. Well, at least Jordan and Patterson are. Teion Park's a little bit different. But Patterson last year played in 10 games, has played in 22 games the last 2 seasons, has 36 tackles over the last 2 seasons, 3 passes defensed, a couple of fumble recoveries. Again, a guy that wasn't a huge part of Illinois secondary, but played significant snaps within a Big Ten school that was a 9-win team. So I like Caleb Patterson at K-State.
And K-State's really high on him. He'll be CB number 1. Love the variety, a lot of newcomers. I've got Will James at number 3, the Houston Cougars cornerback who transferred prior to last year from Southern Miss. He started all 13 games this past season. He had 38 tackles. He had 4 TFLs. They would blitz him off the corner. He also led Houston with 3 interceptions. He had a 37-yard pick 6 against TCU, finished with 8 pass breakups, and was second team All Big 12. And he was All Texas, second team courtesy of Dave Campbell. He was one of only 2 Big 12 sophomores that had 3 picks and 5 pass breakups this past season. With McCutcheon's departure, he is now the clear-cut number 1 corner for Houston. I think he's legit. I've got Will James at number 3.
Number 2 for me is Will James, who was second team All Big 12 in 2025, 38 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, as you said, including a 37-yard pick 6 against Rice and 2 INTs against TCU, 8 pass deflections and 2 forced fumbles. Houston may have the best corner combo, and Javion White just missed my list, but Will James checks in at number 2 for me.
Javion White, he's going to be a stud. Transfer from Tulane for Houston. Number 2 for me is where I have Evan Johnson, who's an incredible story. He was not a defensive back in high school. He came to BYU as a track athlete.
Who do you have number 1?
Who do you have number 1?
Evan Johnson.
Oh, you're missing somebody. We'll get to it. Evan Johnson's number 2, a former 100-meter sprinter, converted to cornerback, lightly recruited from a small private school. He has blown up. 12 games in 2024, missed all of last spring, including the first-team reps. Everybody kind of forgot about him. Then he got on the field, and he erupted into one of the conference's best cornerbacks, played almost 900 snaps, had 5 interceptions, had that defining game early in the year against East Carolina with that goal line pick 6 on the very next defensive play after he had intercepted a pass on the previous series. Just an elite talent, 6'2", rangy. Johnson, number 2.
Yeah, Evan Johnson's my number 1. 824 snaps logged in 2025 with 47 tackles and 5 picks, including the game-clinching interception in that Pop-Tarts Bowl. He's also a big-time track guy, former 10.4 100-meter athlete, so just incredible speed as well. Evan Johnson, for me, the best defensive back in the Big 12.
All right, number 1 for me, Texas Tech, Bryce Pollock.
Yeah, I did forget Bryce Pollock, didn't I?
First team All Big 12.
Yeah.
5th in the country in passer rating allowed, 27.9. Had a run defense grade of almost 79, which is among some of the top run defense grades from corners. He's an exceptional tackler. Had 5 interceptions that led the Big 12. He was 4th in the nation. Had 7 pass breakups. First team All Big 12 AP coaches across the board. Also a highly touted 4-star kid out of Georgia, out of high school. Transferred from Mississippi State. His dad played football at Duke in the 90s, corner for Duke, and had 5 interceptions. Football in his blood. Chose Mississippi State out of high school over like Penn State, Ole Miss, Pitt, Duke, some high-profile programs. He was a dude last year, and he is my CB number 1 in the Big 12.
Yeah, that's a big miss by me. I don't know how I forgot about Bryce Pollock. I would have had the same top 3 as you had I recognized that Bryce Pollock was missing from my list. But, we got some variety in there instead. Probably would have removed Teion Parks and slid everybody else down.
And what's the story on Parks? Where does he come from?
Well, he's spent 2 years at Illinois State as the best corner in the Missouri Valley Conference. Went to Colorado last year and was okay. But, it's hard to judge him when that Colorado defense was just really bad last year, right? He was one piece to a really bad defense. So, plus you figure with TCU investing in him, like there's got to be some talent there. But yeah, can't believe I missed on Bryce Pollock. I'll never forgive myself.
Yeah, don't just let it go. It's
No.
let it go.
No.
It's going to be okay.
Chris Level is yelling at his radio right now. How'd you forget about Bryce Pollock?
So with all these guys off to the NFL, Abney, Garnes at Arizona, Stukes at Arizona, the corner from TCU had Bud Clark, and then I think a corner taken it. Like, there were a lot of corners taken in the draft. Anybody we're missing in terms of guys that could be stars this season in the league at this position?
Well, so Colorado added Cree Thomas from Notre Dame, who is a highly recruited corner and played a little bit as a true freshman last year. So at least you're getting a guy with, that's very green, that probably didn't seal the field much because Notre Dame's talent and experience at the cornerback position. So he's a guy, I think, Jaheim Singletary. Jaheim Singletary at Iowa State is another guy that barely missed my list. He's a guy that spent, first of all, he's a former 5-star recruit. He spent the last 3 years at Arkansas. I mean, he was a rotational piece, but in terms of where Iowa State is, to add a guy like that with his caliber, like, I think that's a big-time add. You talked about Trey Alexander as a pretty big name. And then, I mean, how about the other corner with Houston, Javion White, who 16 starts across 2 seasons at Tulane, all AAC third team, had 3 interceptions in 2025, 50 total tackles, the forced fumble. So I think, again, a guy that he probably could have made the list too.
Definitely. Love White. I look at, when I think about the corner position and I think, okay, which teams stand out? Arizona, Arizona State,
Houston,
BYU.
BYU.
I think collectively, teams that kind of had that identity of elite defensive backfields, those are the schools that come to mind. So Rodney Bamaj Jr. is expected to be a starter for Arizona State, played sparingly as a redshirt freshman last year, had 12 tackles in a hurry, broke up 2 passes, but he's expected to be CB1 for them. Arizona, though, that's a team that, like, you just know they're going to have elite members of that secondary, but it's been completely overhauled.
Right. And that's where none of the transfers made our top 5 list. This is where, if Arizona's disappointing this year, it could be because their secondary was so impactful in their defensive output overall. If they haven't done a good enough job in replacing those guys, this could be a potential pitfall for them.
It's really interesting. If you look at their projected depth chart, which includes a nickel back, so you have 12 players on the projected depth chart. Only 11 can be on the field, obviously, at one time. But the front 6, the defensive line and the linebackers, are all returners. In the back 6, that outside backer, nickel, and then all the other members of the secondary are completely new for Arizona. So I looked at Dalen Austin, maybe the corner transfer from Oregon, who is part of their rotation, but highly touted out of high school as maybe being their guy. All right, coming up next here on Big 12 today, we are about 20 minutes away from Ben Portnoy from College Sports, SBJ Sports Business Journal. He'll be our interview guest in this hour, but have we identified college football's hidden gem? Talking a specific position that's on the rise. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio.
On 3rd and 12, backside heat, fumbled it, it came out. Ball's on the ground. Cougars recover at the 5. Big hit by Jack Kelly.
3rd and 16. Jordan over the middle again. It's caught by Alvarez, but he's going to be taken down at the 39. It's to the holder. Here's the kick. It's blocked. And BYU trying to run it back here. Jack Kelly, who just made the defensive play, and now he does this.
Pressure coming from Kelly. Dampier hit, and down he goes. Jack Kelly may have sealed it for BYU. Inside pressure on Hauser, and he's dropped. Jack Kelly, it was just a matter of time.
This season getting worked on here. Backside pressure. Hauser feels it, will not get away. And that is number 2 for Jack Kelly.
On the draw, dangerously close to being a safety. Micah Ford hit by who else? The ubiquitous ever-present Jack Kelly. Salter flushed out, being spotted, dragged down at the 38-yard line by Jack Kelly.
Big 12 Radio, Ben Portnoy, who covers college sports for the Sports Business Journal, will be our interview of the day. You'll hear him live here in about 15, and then a replay this afternoon at 4:45 Eastern Time, also 2:45 Eastern Time, our newcomer series It all kicks off at 2 Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, here on Big 12 today as we highlight the offensive linemen in the Big 12, the top 5 offensive linemen newcomers. But, Ari, college football, the hidden gem might be the tight end position. And we saw 22 tight ends that were drafted in this most recent draft by the NFL, most since 2002. 9 tight ends were taken in the first 3 rounds. That tied an all-time record. So the NFL is stockpiling these tight ends like never before. And I think that is starting to flow downstream to college football when you look at the transfer portal, especially here in the Big 12. And so when we talk about the dynamics of the sport changing, like defenses got faster to stop the spread offense. Now offenses are responding with bigger bodies. And your Chicago Bears are at the forefront of this. They drafted, their 3rd tight end, and not necessarily because they needed one, but because they value that position, correct?
Yeah, so, I mean, you have a lot more NFL teams that are running 12 personnel or 13 personnel, which is 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 1 running back, 3 tight ends, right? So when teams are identifying what personnel packages they want to send into the field, they'll say 22 or 21 or 12 or 11. 11 is max wide receiver, right? So 11 is 1 running back, 1 tight end, which means the rest of your 11 on the field are going to be wide receivers that are not obviously offensive linemen, right? So, but there's been a major uptick in 12 and 13 personnel. NFL teams ran 12 personnel and 24% of snaps last year, which was up from 21% in 2021. The Bears, as you mentioned, were top 5 in 12 and 13 personnel and spent a 3rd-round pick on Sam Roush from Stanford, who's the best blocking tight end in this draft. And we talk all the time about market inefficiencies in sports, right? And the tight end position seems to be the latest. What's interesting, though, is like high school we're seeing it because the amount of 5-star tight ends far exceeded any previous year. We're seeing in the NFL, but we're not exactly seeing it play out in college. College football, the 12 personnel number is at 21%, which is down again from the NFL, which is at 24%. So, basically, what's really interesting though is this hidden gem of the tight end position is like NFL teams are looking for it, but in a way that like we might not notice from a college level, meaning. And the article doesn't really talk about this. The Athletic piece doesn't really talk about this, but like because there's more spread offense, because spread offenses are still huge in college football, we don't see as much 12 or 13 personnel, which is bigger-bodied tight ends. But yet some of those tight ends are getting drafted to play in the NFL because they're needed for that. So it's sort of an interesting dynamic where like we're seeing a larger uptick of talent at the position with tight ends because of how the high school recruiting is going. Then in college, they're not as impactful. But then they go to the NFL and they are. And I wonder over time if that just like evens out in college too.
Yeah, I think it will, especially when, the recruiting shift, the Big 12 has done very well at the tight end position. And you noted that there were 0 tight ends in the overall top 50 nationally 5 years ago. There were only 15 4-stars total 5 years ago. Today, there's 4 in the top 50, and there are 25 4-star tight ends. So the position is getting more attention. I think about Lincoln Cure at Kansas State. He was a 5-star, their number 1 recruit last year. He'll be back for his sophomore campaign. And then I think the Big 12 is in a really strong position because if I was to compare side by side some of these teams in the Big 12 that maybe are running more of that 12-13 personnel, I think of BYU. Iowa State has been a tight end factory. Kansas State utilizes their tight ends and always have 3 or 4 very capable tight ends on the roster. Texas Tech got more involved with Terrence Carter, who they put a premium price tag on him last year in the portal. I mentioned BYU. Utah's the other one that comes to mind. Arizona State maybe a little bit more. And then when you look at the shift at TCU, Gordon Samus offenses at UConn were very tight end heavy. And what were the measurables on the kid that the Bears drafted?
Yeah, 6'6", 270.
That is an offensive lineman a decade ago.
Move. Well, think about the Roush. So you line him up at the end of your line, right? He's basically going to, let's say you're going to the left, so he'll be like an extension left tackle there on the left side. And then you've got Cole Kmet, a very athletic big tight end, on the outside, and then you've got Colston Loveland, who's also a very big athletic tight end in the slot, okay? So, like, what are you supposed to do matchup-wise? You supposed to put a linebacker on Colston Loveland, who's not going to be able to keep up with him? Are you going to put a corner on Cole Kmet, who he's too – and now you leak out your Sam Roush, 6'6", 267, 270, and now he's like – so you're basically covering 3 levels in terms of the passing. And that's in an opportunity where, again, you're leaking out your blocking tight end. I think that's the market efficiency there. It's like you've got 3 guys that are 6'5" to 6'7". You're not going to be able to account for all 3 of those guys defensively. And on top of that, you're talking about 3 layers of the defense, attacking 3 layers of the defense, where you've got a guy underneath, a guy in the mid-level, and then a guy deep down the field.
And tight ends have evolved into essentially offensive linemen with hands. Like 6'6", 270 a decade ago is your starting left tackle. 6'6", 270 now is your starting tight end. These are offensive linemen with soft hands. And the Big 12, this most recent draft, sure, like Michael Trigg not getting drafted, that was a disappointment from Baylor. But he signs one of the largest undrafted free agent deals, $200K, with the Cowboys. He's going to make the roster.
But what was the biggest weakness of Trigg?
Blocking.
See, the thing is, like, Roush is unique because he's a stud blocker. It's the reason why he was a 3rd-round pick. The majority of these guys at tight end are basically big receivers. There's nothing wrong with that, but the value of the dual threat guys. Now, Roush at this point is not exactly a dual threat guy, but he's got the upside to be that.
So he's not dual threat in that he struggles in the passing game as a receiver?
That's a weakness. Had he been better at that, he probably would have been a 1st-round pick. Because you're just not finding tight ends that can block at college. Because in most cases, they don't need to. At Stanford, though, Frank Reich is the coach. He's got a background in the NFL. He's going heavier personnel. But most teams want their speed on the field. They don't want bulk. The Bears are going to do both.
In college, when you look at – number one, I love a 2 tight end set. You've got a pass-catching tight end and you've got a blocking tight end.
Oh, but don't – I'm all about Team 13 personnel. 3 tight ends.
3 tight ends, okay. But the data from the college programs from this piece, and again, this is courtesy of The Athletic. Who wrote this? I need to give them credit. Give me just a moment. But the data from the college programs, the schools that are running the most 12 personnel are the ones winning national titles when you look at Michigan and Georgia and Ohio State. And the Big 12 has leaned in. BYU, they've brought in 2 elite 5-star tight ends. Who were the blocking tight end from Oregon and a pass-catching tight end, Walker Lyons, from USC. Arizona brings in Cole Rusk, who was the top pass catcher at Illinois last year. Kansas State always has tight ends. Houston loses Tanner Koziol, but they bring in a high-level tight end. Like when we did our newcomer series on tight ends and when we rank this position, I think it's going to look very strong for the league.
Well, and you also, the point about high school recruits and how much more we're seeing the tight end position is very much a cultural change. You look at this draft. One of the top tight ends in this draft, Stowers, was originally a quarterback. So a lot of these guys, in many ways, have been, other positions, defensive ends, linebackers, that they shifted quarterbacks. They shifted to a different position to play tight end. So now we're finding guys that are specializing in high school at that position, which is kind of unique. It's funny because for a long time, everybody was chasing the next, Antonio Gates and Jimmy Graham. And we always heard about how basketball players translate to the tight end position. And it's like, there's literally 2 examples of it happening. Like that's a rarity, Like there were countless other basketball players that they tried to work at tight end and didn't work. But there were 2 that did. And so everybody's like, see, look, you got to get yourself a basketball player that works at tight end. Like, that's not a trend. That's an anomaly that we think is a trend.
Right.
But I think the point was, like, oh, you don't need to develop a tight – like, you can find tight ends from other positions. Now it's become much more of a specialized position. I think there's much more of a demand for the position. And because of that, we're starting to see that happen in high school. But again, I go back to the spread era of college football isn't over. And so spread teams are going to continue to utilize the tight end as a pass catcher and not as much as a blocker. That's part of it. When you're running spread, you're getting as much talent, athleticism on the field. You don't want bulk. You don't want inline wide tight ends. So those two things will be interesting. And it, again, kind of shows that there's probably value in the NFL in zigging when everybody else is zagging when it comes to spread styles. If you're gonna combat the bulk that the speed that most defenses have to account for with bulk, you might be in a much more advantageous position.
I mean, having 22 tight ends drafted, the most since 2002, tells me that the NFL has very much bought in. And now, to your point, it is a selling point to high school athletes that you can be an NFL tight end. And the 12 personnel being up 24%, up to 24% of NFL snaps and climbing.
NFL teams ran 12 personnel, 1 running back, and 2 tight ends on 24% of snaps. Last year, or 2021, that number was 21%. So there's a major uptick. And we're even seeing more 13 personnel. The Chicago Bears in particular ran a decent amount of 13 personnel last year. What's also interesting to note, too, is Georgia and Michigan, when they won their championships, were very heavy 12 and 13 personnel teams. Indiana only used 12 personnel and 13% of snaps. So, again, this goes back to, which is well below the average. The college average in 2025, 2026 was 21%. So this goes back to are you more of a spread or more of a bulk style? We think of Michigan, Georgia as teams that are bulkier, bigger.
When you think of Big 12 teams, which teams come to mind that are bigger, bulkier, running more tight end sets?
BYU.
Utah. Iowa State.
Historically, yes.
Yeah, we don't know what they'll look like this year. I think of Kansas State.
Yep.
Even Texas Tech had a lot more tight end involvement than they had in the past. I think we look at, so many explosive plays, tops in the country, Cameron Dickey at tailback, spread sets with the receivers, Douglas and Aiken and Virgil. But Terrence Carter was very involved in their offense. BYU's the number one school that jumps out to me. I mean, Carson Ryan was a blocking tight end at Utah. He transfers to BYU, ends up with 45 catches, ends up drafted by the Cleveland Browns at pick 248, whereas he wasn't on anybody's radar. Same thing with the kid from Utah, Bentley, DJ Rogers at TCU. There were a lot of tight ends that once we got to our draft series, it's like, whoa, the Big 12 has a long list of dudes.
Well, and I think Michael Trigg will end up being a successful tight end in the NFL, but I think what's happened in the draft is they used to just draft a guy like Michael Trigg because to have a guy with his size and ability to get open, as a pass catcher, you just couldn't find it. But now those guys are kind of a dime a dozen. It's the guys that can do both, blocking and catching, those are the guys that are getting drafted. It's the reason Carson Ryan gets drafted and Michael Trigg doesn't, right? If you watch their games, it's like, whoa, Michael Trigg is way more athletic, he's got way more upside, but Ryan is the more dual threat. Mm-hmm. And you just, it used to be you could try to develop that, but now they're not doing that because there are guys that are developing that at earlier ages, at earlier levels.
Yeah, 25 four-star tight ends this past cycle. There were 15 5 years ago. So keep an eye on the recruiting rankings when it comes to the tight end position and which Big 12 schools are signing and chasing high-level tight ends because it could be a market inefficiency. All right, somebody that's all over the Big 12 and national college football news on the financial side, Ben Portnoy, Sports Business Journal. He joins us coming up next, covers it all here on Big 12 Radio. He's Ari, I'm James. We are powered by Modelo on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios.
As he deals to the 40, off to the races already. Emmanuel Henderson Jr.
Touchdown passes of 41 yards and 39 yards respectively. This is Emmanuel Henderson who had a 42-yard kickoff return in the first half. And the same, he pulls through, and he's off to the races. Emmanuel Henderson opens the second half with a kickoff return touchdown of 93 yards.
Nothing fancy coming up. Watch this little cut that he makes right here. Right there. Guys had an opportunity to get him, and then, like he's a sprinter at the World Championships, showing them the tail light. Look at him stretch it out. And that's the way you're supposed to do it. You finish through the tape, man. You got to get that lean at the tape. Henderson electrifies this crowd here at Lawrence. Watch this. The form dip with that chest to break the tape at the goal line.
And almost not break stride here at all. And just unfortunately, Tatum Barnes' feet get tangled up right there really awkwardly. Made him touch grass. I think the off-frame throw.
Daniels looking Anderson's way, and he's going to take a shot for him. He had shot it. He's there, caught, and into the end zone, touchdown. They got Lampley a little spun around.
I mean, this little play action. Good job up front. Good protection.
Well, Fanatic Friday here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Alongside Ari Timken, I'm James Westling. Our guest this hour is Ben Portnoy, college sports reporter for Sports Business Journal. Hey, Ben, good morning.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. When I see your stuff pop up on social media, I get excited because I know you're all over it. So give us just your initial thoughts on the Big 12 private capital deal is what we'll call it. So break it down for us, and what do you think this looks like for the league?
Yeah, so I think you make a good point off the bat, is this is a private capital deal versus more of a private equity deal, which I think is it's nuanced and convoluted, but I think there's an important piece there is that, Redbird Capital is basically giving schools in the Big 12 and the conference office an opportunity to take some upfront cash to accelerate sort of growth areas that they see. So like think of places that they can generate more revenue, essentially. This is not, say, for example, like the Big Ten deal that floated around in the earlier part of this year and last year. That was more a direct sort of ownership stake in the league and a new entity. This is a little bit different. What this is basically I like to look at it as kind of like a fund, essentially, where Big 12 schools can say, hey, we'll sign up for this or we won't sign up for this. And we can use this money to, make up an example. Say you need whatever, $10 million to help build out some suites that you think will help you, generate an extra $10 million a year. And it's easier to get at this cash now than to go through the procurement process or things like that you would go through at the university level. That's kind of the idea here, is that it's sort of like, do with it what you will in order to generate revenue faster and accelerate that growth. It's a little bit, but again, every school is going to make that decision and that determination. My understanding is that I think that you'll probably see, I think half of the league would be a big number that will take part in this. But I do think that, it gives schools an opportunity basically to help accelerate growth. And I think that's an important thing.
Yeah. And, the Big 12 had already, some business dealings with Redbird Capital, and I think big picture, there's probably a strategic alignment here from Redbird's involvement with Paramount Skydance.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that, one thing that, I think, Brett Yormark has gotten a lot of credit for and deserves a lot of credit for is sort of the creative ways that he's been able to get in business with pretty much all of the major players in college sports from the TV rights side of things. So, for example, obviously the Big 12 has its deal with ESPN and Fox from a TV side of things, but by working with Redbird, which also is a shareholder in Paramount, or what will be Skydance and all of those things, right? This is sort of an indirect, sort of backwards way to also work with CBS as well. And so you look at with the way that the Big 12 is positioned. Look, the reality is in college sports these days, the big dollars that come into college sports, and the reason that we've seen the growth that we've seen and we see the numbers that get floated around all over the place, is because of TV rights deals. And the Big 12 has essentially positioned itself to be working with, in some form or fashion, ESPN, Fox, CBS, and a handful of others, and is basically in a spot where now when you go to market for a new deal in a couple of years, every single one of those TV networks will have, for lack of a better term, kind of sampled the product or have an idea of what the product is. And I think that's important when you have those relationships and you have working relationships with those people on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's part of the positioning here as well.
Yeah, definitely. Ben, what do you make of the Duke announcement as they team up with Amazon Prime? It'll be their first college sports relationship. And what impact could that have on the future of the media landscape?
I think there's two things that kind of jump to mind. Is one, I think if you're Duke, it's a super creative way to kind of build your own television packages, overstating it, but to create your own, sort of take control of your content, essentially, and be able to monetize it a little bit, which I think is really smart, right? They're going to have a couple of big-time non-conference matchups. They've signed this deal with Amazon. It's going to be for, millions of dollars. That's going to help, the bottom line at Duke, right? Like that's all good and well. That's super smart. We saw sort of, discussions about this when Notre Dame and USC were trying to do a variation of this. The Big 12 said no. That didn't, wasn't kosher with them. But I think that's the next question I have here is, okay, if Duke's allowed to do this in the ACC, who else in the ACC might push this envelope? So if you're Florida State, if you're Clemson, if you're whoever, right, like, I'm raising my hand and saying, hey, I want to take 2 of my football games and sell them to a streamer. Like, can I do that? Is ESPN going to say yes? I don't know. Probably not. But I think that's a conversation that then has to be had, is that you've sort of set this precedent where you've allowed Duke to take a couple of major basketball games. And look, big-time basketball games are different than big-time football games. I get it. Like, from a price perspective, viewership, all those things. But you've opened the door to allow Duke to do this, and ESPN as the rights holder with the ACC has allowed Duke to do this. Who else is going to be allowed to do this? Are there other leagues that are going to look at this, right? Like I said, Notre Dame and USC talked about this, and the Big Ten put sort of the kibosh on that. Are there teams in the SEC? Is Alabama going to turn around and say, hey, we want to sell this game or that game? Could Georgia and Georgia Tech go and try and sell their game to, Apple TV or something like that, right? A non-conference game. I don't know. I think that's what this door opens, and I think becomes a really, really interesting thing to watch. Again, it requires a lot of agreement among people, and Lord knows that in college sports there's not a lot of that these days. And so I think that you look at that, it requires a lot of cooperation between TV rights holders, between the leagues, between the schools, all of those things. And so I don't know that it creates a trend necessarily. Maybe this turns into a one-off thing, but I do think it's a really interesting nugget that could prove to end up turning into a lot more if other leagues and schools try to make similar sort of overtures.
Yeah, agreed. And to me, there's like two parts to this. There's the streaming part. And so the first question I have for you is, how active do you think an Amazon Prime or an Apple will be in the next round of rights? And then the second part of that is, do you think this will change how those rights are written to not, if they want, let's say ESPN or Fox or Apple want the sort of exclusive rights to a conference, that it'll be written that they have then the exclusive rights to a conference, because this obviously supersedes that.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And I think, look, I'm certainly not a lawyer, despite maybe playing one on television by the week, it seems. But I do think that when it comes to the contract language, like that creates an interesting caveat of like, will there be carve outs or things like that? But I do think you're right in that, how do the TV networks look at this long term, or how do the streamers get involved? I think that, look, streamers have wanted to get involved in college sports and college football in particular. You look at sort of the unraveling of the Pac-12. Part of that was around the deal that they were going to sign with Apple, or that George Kliavkoff, the commissioner at the time, had brought forward with Apple TV. That didn't sort of rise to the number that those schools thought they should be getting, and that's essentially why the Pac-12 fell apart. That said, I do think that, look, there's really two kind of growth areas in college sports right now, right? It's the game, right? The on-field product is getting better, or remains really entertaining. And then it's the TV rights. Like, the TV rights continue to grow and are a pretty steady bet. And so if you're Amazon or Apple or whoever, like, you want to get into a growth area, and the TV rights are certainly that. And so, will we see, say, make up a league, right? Go sign a deal with ESPN and then bring on Amazon as a streamer as well, like to broadcast some games too. Like, I think that's actually a super feasible option, and I think there's a lot of people considering things along those lines these days in a different way than they were maybe 5 years ago.
Man, Amazon Prime, I used to think, hey, that's where we watch our movies. And now it's sports on top of that. Speaking of movies, you spent a bunch of time reporting on your cover story that was Learfield's sale to TPG. And you noted that the movie business was a parallel that you found. What did you uncover, and what did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's interesting. It gets at a little bit of what I was just saying, right? Like, I think there's sort of two areas that a lot of people circle as far as like companies that want, or businesses, or even private equity that wants to get into college sports. There's kind of two ways to do that, and two places that make sense to do that. One of them is with the game, right? The game itself, the on-the-field product. And then it's the TV rights. And like, those are the two sort of pillars of what's growing right now. Learfield, which I think, for its sort of broad strokes, essentially sells corporate sponsorships and things like that to brands and companies on behalf of basically, probably more than half, close to 60 or 70% of the Power Four, about 150 schools across Division I. They exist in a funny orbit where they're sort of a middleman, right? Like, they're operating in that they don't own the rights, or the assets, like the billboards or the, jersey patches or things like that they're selling. But they're also not, invested in the TV networks, for example, or things like that. And so they operate in a little bit of an interesting in between. And, the parallel I made was kind of, you look at the movie business, and it's sort of this interplay between movie theaters and movie studios, right? Like, movie studios benefit off the fact of good movies are coming to the studios. but they're not dictating what those movies are. Whereas the studios are building out building movies or creating movies. But the product in the theater, like if the floor is sticky and the popcorn machine's broken or something like that, right? Like the studios don't own that asset. So it's this funny interplay where it's sort of who owns what and how they have to be a little bit codependent. And I think that when you look at a player like Learfield, and there's others, Playfly is one, JMI Sports, there's a lot of other companies that operate in this business, but I think Learfield obviously has the scale that's different than a lot of those. That it creates an interesting dynamic of like, what does that look like long term? What does that business look like long term when you have a private equity firm investing in it and spending almost $2 billion to purchase this company? How can they grow the business when the back end when ultimately like the big part of the business that is propping up the company is sort of this in between that you don't control those assets. And I think there's a lot of ways it can continue to grow, and there's reasons that people are super optimistic, but I think it's an interesting thing to track on over the coming years.
Ben, going back to the Redbird thing for a moment, I'm curious for a couple of reasons. Number one, like you brought up this distinction earlier, and I think it's really important. Like we call this private equity. This is not equity. This is a cash play. So there's not an equity involvement here. So it is appropriate to change the verbiage there. What's the end goal here for Redbird? Private equity wants to buy businesses and then sell them at a higher percentage, which they're really good at doing. That's not the play here. What's the long-term play for Redbird in your opinion? And second, what is the Big 12 doing with this money?
That is a really good question, and I think it's going to vary school by school. If you're the league office, like, are there certain initiatives or things like that you can invest in that this helps accelerate? I think that's where you'll see it. Like, again, with the schools, I use the facility example, but I think things like to that end, if you need $5 million, $10 million, $15 million quickly, this is a way to do it. As far as Redbird's long-term hopes, like, I think it's a mix. I mean, I think, look, like, private equity firms have been circling college sports for much of the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, given the growth and given that also at the same time, it's kind of a distressed asset, right? Like there's a lot of chaos in college sports and there's a lot of change that's probably going to come. And so because of that, there's opportunity in chaos a little bit, right? And I think that's where you look at firms like a Redbird or others that have circled it. If you're Redbird, you're now directly involved in college sports in a way that others are not. And I think that creates a groundswell for whatever comes next. Is that a super league? Is it different opportunities with schools? Is it different opportunities with leagues? Things like that. It at least gets you in the conversation and at the table to say, hey, we're working in college sports. We're doing some things. Here's kind of what we've done. Here's what we see from the landscape. And it gets you a little closer to be a little more involved in that area. And I think that's part of the play at least. And again, I'm sure there are other things long term that they're looking at, but that's, I think, at a base level, kind of what they see.
Ben, you noted this morning that Marshall agreed to a deal with a local health company. They're going to have a jersey patch, and they are the 11th school nationally. Is this just going to be the norm, you think, going forward to a point where we should just assume everybody's going to have a jersey patch with a sponsor?
I think so. I mean, I think it's, it's something that it comes up a lot with, any school, right? Like these days, everyone needs more cash, essentially. And jersey patches, and when you talk to people in sort of like the sponsorship world, that's the asset or the thing that can be sold that people see as like the most valuable. Like that's more valuable than a field logo. It's more valuable than a ribbon board. It's more valuable than whatever, right? Because you're seeing it on all the jerseys all the time. I think that you're going to see most schools will take that leap. Now, these things take some time to sell. I think it's an important thing to note is like, I use this example a lot of like, if you're Marshall, right? Let's use Marshall as an example, right? Like Gatorade is probably not going to come in and sponsor your jersey, right? Like for a big brand like that, that doesn't really make as much sense for them. On the flip side of that, like is your small, mom and pop, car dealership probably can't afford to spend what they're going to need to spend in order to afford that asset. So it creates this funnel of if your giant brands and your small brands aren't going to be the ones to pay for this probably, who's kind of left? Who's in that sort of next bucket? And you're seeing a lot of regional companies. The Marshall health system here was one that came up. Wisconsin's done a deal with UW Health. Regional companies. South Carolina has a deal with a sort of local or around the Carolinas construction company. You're going to see more regional deals, I think, like that. And we've seen that even in the NBA and other leagues too. Like that, the number that I always hear is that most of these jersey patch deals on the professional side are within about 200 miles of the market that they're serving, and so I think you're going to see more of that, and that's how that continues to evolve. But I think pretty much every school in America is vetting this right now, though it takes, it can take 12, 18 months to sell that asset. So because this has just been allowed, and because some schools have done more legwork on it than others, like that's why you're seeing it come in waves. But I do think I would expect that there's going to be some more.
Yeah, it's here. Ben Portnoy from the Sports Business Journal joining us here on Big 12 today. Ben, awesome stuff, man. Appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you guys so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Ben Portnoy, college sports reporter for SBJ, here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Coming up next, what Manny Navarro from The Athletic learned after studying over 3,000 FBS transfers in the college football transfer portal. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo.
Montez retreating. That one's batted. That one's picked. And we got action in Lubbock. Skylar Gill Howard. A big man touchdown.
The 16. Dampier drops it off near side. Snowden looking for some blockers, and he won't get them. They're just jumping on him. Gill Howard. Just go get the quarterback.
David Bailey barreling down, and there's a sack, and it's Skylar Gill Howard. Bailey applied pressure from the edge. Gill Howard cleaned it up inside. 4th down.
Couple of sacks, couple of tackles for losses in this game. Chris Brilliant running here, and they're going to blow it dead short of the line.
Figure out how to move the ball. Dampier fakes the toss, and he'll gain a yard. Not a lot, as Skylar Gill Howard comes up with the tackle.
Keep it on the ground on 3rd and long to try to get something to put him in 4th and manageable. Burnett down at the 40.
That's Texas Tech defense I've seen in the last 10 plus years. That pass is intercepted. And again, it was Murphy under pressure. Lots of pressure.
Here's a handoff. Rodgers. And Rodgers gains 5. Gill Howard again.
Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 a Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Special thanks to Ben Portnoy from Sports Business Journal, covers all of college sports. He is our interview of the day, joined us just moments ago live, and you can hear it this afternoon again at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central Time, and 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central Time. We will play our newcomer series, highlighting the top 5 Big 12 offensive linemen entering this league, and then Ben Portnoy is our interview of the day here on Big 12 Radio. So stick with us all day long here on the channel. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. In about 15 minutes, Jamie Plunkett from 24/7 Sports and the host of Base 12 Sports covering Big 12 baseball will join us on the program. But we touched yesterday on a little bit of the portal power and everything that's on the table when it comes to the NCAA trying to rein this in. Manny Navarro from The Athletic put together a fantastic piece. He studied 3,300 transfers in college football. A lot of Big 12 mentions because the Big 12 is so heavy in the portal, but also I think the biggest number, and there's a lot of numbers to unpack that jumped out to me, is in my mind, when I think about the power conferences, I just assume that everybody's transferring up, right? Well, he noted that 32% of Power 4 transfers actually transferred down to a group of 6 school. So almost 600 players and nearly 1 in 3 Power Conference players in the portal didn't land at another Power 4 school. They transferred down. So there are a ton of guys transferring up, and these Power 4 rosters are absolutely stacked, but some guys would rather start at a group of 6 than sit on a Power 4 bench. It's almost a trade of sorts when you look at some of the data.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting stuff that came out of this. And look, I mean, I think what's interesting is so you get different numbers every year, and in some ways it's changing dramatically and, you know, in ways that are unique. And so I think what happens is, like, you kind of come up with conclusions one year, and then in some ways those conclusions can be invalidated in the next years. But what one thing that is happening is Power 5 scholarship players are still getting landing spots. You know, so there's a ton of players in the portal that don't end up finding homes, but those aren't the scholarship Power 5 players.
Right.
Basically, 76% of FBS scholarship portal entrants have already signed somewhere. In 2023, that number was 77. In 2024, that number was 81. In 2025, that number was 85%. Now, remember, we still have months before the season starts, so that 76% number could still get higher than 85%. And I think the hypothesis is it will. So basically, some of what you've heard about how many of these players in the portal aren't finding homes is true, but not exactly telling. What's telling is the majority of those guys that are scholarship players are finding homes.
Well, and with so many guys transferring down and Power 4 conference rosters are getting better, Group of 6 conference rosters are getting better because now the NIL money at a mid-major, if you will, or a Group of 6, a starter there can beat a backup role at a power school for some of these athletes. Not talking about the top 1 or 5 or 10%.
Yeah, there's levels to it. And we've seen guys that can start and produce from the Group of 5 to the Power 5, and we've seen the opposite. I mean, there's levels to it also, right? If we're talking about the SEC, the Big Ten, then the ACC and the Big 12, right? Like we talked about a couple already. Jordan from Oklahoma, Caleb Patterson from K-State. Those are 2 guys that, from a preseason standpoint, look to be 2 of the better corners in this league, and those are 2 guys that, you know, were rotational pieces for Big Ten and SEC schools, right? So, good example of how, you know, there's just different levels of transferring up and down. And I think that's why, like, yeah, you see guys that are all MAC performers transferring up, and you see guys that are all AAC performers transferring up, but it's a two-way street. You get guys that maybe didn't see as many snaps, maybe highly recruited and haven't seen as much on the field, like, that maybe weren't fits, right? Like, it's a two-way street of guys transferring up and then guys transferring down that end up outperforming what they did at their previous stop.
And the group of 6 has essentially become a minor league system for the Power 4 conference schools. There's no denying that. But with it flowing in both directions, I just wonder if we will ever get to a point where a group of 6 school competes at a college football playoff level with a power conference school. Or is that gap just always going to be there? Like, if the power conference schools are getting better and the group of 6 schools are getting better, who are the schools, like, there have to be laws of averages where somebody's bottoming out. Like, who is it? Who are the teams that just can't compete?
Well, I mean, they will be sprinkled across all of the levels. It's just the ones, certainly the group of 5, group of 6, like Kent State, that just don't have any money and are not competing to win games. But then there's also the teams that have made bad bets that will just bring in transfers and still not be successful.
The other takeaway from this article is that there are a lot of Big 12 mentions in terms of incoming production, incoming starts at the power conference level in the Big 12. So Oklahoma State, we've noted their class. Kansas actually gained 181 net career starts, which is 4th most among all the power conference schools. So that's a number that belongs in the same sentence as a Texas A&M and a Penn State on paper. Kansas brought in a lot of production, and the production piece is really interesting to me because we've seen with Indiana and with some of these other, Texas Tech is another one. Sure, they're spending big, as are all the other programs, but they're targeting guys that have been on the field a bunch at their previous stop, and there are a long list of Big 12 schools that are doing just that now.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is how much coaching changes are an engine for the portal. The top 8 transfer receivers are almost all led by new coaches. Oklahoma State, 53 signees. Iowa State, 47. Colorado's at 43, obviously not a new coach there, but Arkansas, 42. UCLA, 41. New coaches there. New coach at LSU with 40 new players. New coach at Auburn, 39 new players. New coach at Penn State, 38 new players. So of those that brought in the majority of the transfers, only Dion is the only one that isn't a new coach. So, like, the programs that got the most gutted, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, those are the ones also that lost their coaches, right? So these things make a ton of sense. And maybe most interesting about that is the majority of players that Eric Morris brings over are from North Texas, right? So it's, guy leaves program, brings the majority of his team with him. We saw that with Kurt Signetti in Indiana. I mean, that's a path that's being followed right now. There's been a decent amount that have come with Jimmy Rogers from Washington State, even though he was only there for a year.
Well, and the net career starts gained factors in not just the guys coming in, but the departures too. So with Penn State number 1, Matt Campbell, Oklahoma State number 2, Eric Morris, sure, we go to the number of guys that they brought with them from their previous stop, but also the number of guys that they retained. Because to have net career starts, like, it's not a wash with the guys that left and the guys that they brought in. Penn State gained 206 starts. Oklahoma State gained 201. Third on the list is Texas Tech, who gained 189, and I brought up Kansas, who brings in 181. So to me, that says a lot about the roster retention at these schools, in addition to the portal experienced players that they've brought in.
What kind of big picture stands out to you about this piece? Because it's always fun to look at these numbers and dissect them and go deeper on them, because it gives you a pretty good sense of the trends in college football.
Yeah, and it's list season. The overarching big picture takeaway for me was, number 1, the number of players that are transferring down to group of 6. And then number 2, the fact that the Big 12 has 4 teams in the top 8 nationally in net career starts gained. And Colorado's not one of those 4. And we know about their roster turnover every year, right? Dion has a bunch of players leave. He has a bunch of players come in. So for Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Kansas, and UCF to be 4 of the top 8 schools nationally And UCF, frankly, in Kansas, I didn't even have on my transfer portal radar. But those are two teams that I'm thinking now, man, they maybe did a lot of damage that went unseen and unheard in the portal.
Yeah, no, I think those are great. For me, the coaching change thing is so interesting because it incentivizes firing coaches because of how quickly other coaches have proven they can bring in their own players and be successful right away. So like it's just a really weird dynamic. But you know, it used to be like if you had a bad season with a team, you know, that group would come back and return, and like maybe they'd be galvanized by the negativity of last year. Maybe the leadership emerges through that. Like there's almost this like, yeah, last year was so bad we don't have to deal with that. And there was like this, you know, common theme that the team could latch onto. That's gone now. Like Colorado had a bad year. They completely turn over their roster. So it's almost like you have a bad season and your coach is like, that's it, new group, line change. You know, like I don't know if that's good or bad. I feel like it's more bad than good. But I think just the propensity to turn over rosters, which was unprecedented previously, is now not only widespread, but you're almost incentivized to do it.
Yeah. I mean, this says a lot about those programs that are on this list that have new coaches and canned the previous coaching staff by week 5.
Yeah.
Like Oklahoma State's the prime example. They canned Gundy after like 3 or 4 games. Now they wait until the end of the season to hire Eric Morris, but they're number 2 on this list. Like they have shown that maybe if you know you're going to make that decision, making it earlier doesn't hurt you. If anything, it can help you. But in the same breath, I'm thinking, okay, Penn State's number 1 on this list, and they had one of the latest coaching searches in college football. And then where's Virginia Tech? These Penn State players, at least on paper, didn't follow James Franklin to Virginia Tech. So both strategies I think can work, but this definitely, to your point, does incentivize schools to make these moves maybe a little bit earlier because the examples and the case studies are there.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100% does. And, you know, again, like, I think there used to be negative consequences of a coaching change in that you'd have to turn over a roster to a degree, and it would take time, and there's development, and now it's it's gone the complete opposite way. It's like you want to fire a coach in order to have a new coach that will bring in their players. Like that used to be a disincentive. Oh, we got to keep this coach because he's developed some of these guys, and I think next year they could break through. And now it's like, no, let's hit the reset button. And again, it's not even just with coaching changes. Look at Colorado. Colorado had a bad year. Kick everybody off. Start over. Line change. New group.
Do you think it also incentivizes athletic directors to target coaches that have rosters?
Yes.
That can win right away.
Yes.
Like a North Texas.
Yes. Like a Tulane. Yes. Undoubtedly.
Versus hiring an offensive or defensive coordinator that's maybe a young up-and-comer at a major program. You go get the head coach from a group of 6 and bring his entire team.
And here's what's interesting. It worked for Kurt Signetti. Is it going to work for everybody? No, it's not. Inevitably, there will be examples of this not working. Mm-hmm. But right now, it's batting 100, batting 1,000. I think Eric Morris is going to be successful. I think the players he's bringing with him from North Texas to Oklahoma State are really good. Or are they going to win a national championship? Probably not. But it's not always going to work in that jump, you know?
Yeah, I mean, John Sumrall at Florida comes to mind in terms of guys that maybe it doesn't work because not everybody from Tulane went with him. A lot of those guys are reunited with Willie Fritz at Houston.
Yep.
So sometimes maybe you make the hire, see that team in the college football playoff and think, hey, this will be our team next year, but then it doesn't play out that way. Fascinating stuff. Jamie Plunkett, who is the host of Base 12 Sports, also writes for 24/7 and some TCU stuff. Big 12 baseball is our topic coming up next. Jamie joins us each and every Friday here on the program during the baseball season. He's REM James, and this is Big 12 Radio.
Here comes a
TCU pressure. Deal. Picked off. That will do it. Namdi Obi-Izor seals the rivalry win for the Horned Frogs.
And first and goal, 8 seconds to go. That's knocked up. That's picked off. Obi-Izor takes it away for TCU. And they stand at the goal line as the half expires.
Earl under pressure. Sack wrapped up and brought down. Andy Obi-Izor, the sack for TCU.
That was Bain, right? That was Bain. Tonight's theme. Oh, big hit. Obi-Izor in the backfield.
Lift him up, form tackle, throw him down. My God. That is a tackle if I've ever seen one. Boom. Good Lord.
Side of Lopez. And no running room.
This defense, you keep contained, not fooled at all. Finish at the end of the year where no one feels like you have anything to play for.
What do you have inside of you? Pryor on the run, taken outside. Obi-Izor spun him down.
If he can correct on a 3rd and 11. He steps up in some trouble and he's swung down. Obi-Izor with the sack.
over at Base 12 Sports. They've got Big 12 baseball, storylines, stats, deep dive analysis, and Jamie Plunkett from Base 12 joins us now on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. He's Ari James. Jamie, appreciate your time each and every Friday. Good morning.
Morning, James. Morning, Ari. Good to talk to you guys again.
So what is the biggest storyline surrounding Big 12 baseball from the week that was and the upcoming weekend?
The biggest storyline from the week that was, I think, is the fact that TCU got Tommy Laporte back in the fold. When you lose a Friday ace the first weekend of the season, you have to kind of shuffle the chairs on the deck of the Titanic, it feels like. And getting him back does the exact opposite thing. It gives you a boost, gives you a lot of energy, and it gives you your best arm back. So it'll be fun to see him get the start today up in Stillwater against Oklahoma State. He'll be on a pitch count. They're going to ease him back in. But just having your Friday ace back for a team like TCU, who's so talented, was the preseason favorite, has to be a shot in the arm going into the end of the season. And then this weekend, kind of the biggest storyline, I would say, is the matchup between UCF and Arizona State. We're talking about two teams that are tied for second in the Big 12. Both are intent on keeping pace with or gaining ground on Kansas this weekend. And a series win is going to be critical to doing that. You know, UCF has some of the best pitching in the country. Arizona State has some of the best hitting and maybe the best hitter in the whole country in Landon Hairston. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of matchups I want to preview with you, but you just hit on it there a little bit in the Oklahoma State-TCU matchup. This is a really interesting matchup from a standpoint of these are two teams that have been historically really good in the Big 12 that are struggling a bit this year. So it sort of feels like the winner of this series is in decent position. The loser of the series is kind of out of it.
It definitely feels that way with only 2 weekends left after this one. You know, you've really got to make your move. TCU's in 4th, Oklahoma State's in 6th, and both of these teams are vying for, you know, seeding in the Big 12 tournament, but also trying to solidify their NCAA tournament record. And when you look at the injuries that TCU has sustained and Oklahoma State has sustained as well, getting guys like Noah Weck and Tommy Laporte back are going to be really important for these teams. And then you look at the offenses. I mean, both of these teams can hammer the baseball. Oklahoma State better than almost anybody else in the country. They're at 100 home runs this year in a really favorable ballpark for that. I think we're going to see both of these teams give each other their best shot this weekend. I'll be up there for it. I'm really looking forward to being there and watching that series.
So TCU's won 5 in a row in Big 12 play, and they get their Friday arm back. So can you give us more on Tommy Laporte? What was the injury? You said he's been out since like the first week of the season, and what does he add to already a surging TCU team?
Yeah, so he made his first start of the year on opening day against Vanderbilt out at Globe Life. Velo was down a little bit and woke up on Saturday morning with some tenderness in his elbow. And when you're a pitcher, that's never a good thing, right? And so TCU played it as precautious as they possibly could, just took it as slow as they possibly could, exhausted all of their evaluations and resources to check out his elbow, and made the determination that he would be able to return this year, but that he would need to take his time working his way back into the rotation again. So he missed 9 weeks of the season with that elbow injury, made a relief appearance this past Sunday against Houston for his first appearance since opening day. And now they're going to work him back into the rotation and have him on a pitch count. I wouldn't expect him to throw more than 40, 45 pitches today against Oklahoma State. But just getting your guy back when he's the frontline ace, and you have Saturday and Sunday guys like Lance Davis and Zach James who have been so great over the last 5 or 6 weeks, it really does solidify your rotation, even if he can only give you 3 innings, because then you can go to a Trevor Baumler or Mason Brassfield, guys who have been filling in on Fridays, and they slot back into their more normal long relief, late inning relief kind of roles. So what it does is it pushes all of your puzzle pieces back into order if you're TCU, and it allows you theoretically to give your offense more breathing room. The stronger your pitching staff is, the more leeway your offense has to take a deep breath, see a bunch of pitches, score some runs, and TCU is going to need all of that this weekend.
Jamie, when I think of Big 12 baseball, I think of Arizona State and UCF.
Oh, yeah.
When I think of the historical context with Big 12 baseball, I think of the old school rivalry between Arizona State and UCF. This has got to be the best series of the weekend, featuring 2 of the best teams, but it's I don't know, it's just an interesting matchup.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you look around and you say, oh, okay, well, Arizona, Big 12 basketball champ, right? Utah, thinking they're going to be the Big 12 football champ. Things have just changed so much in the college landscape over the last few years. But the reality is both UCF and Arizona State have been great this year. I mean, Rich Wallace in year 3 with the Knights has that thing maybe a little bit ahead of schedule, I would say, as far as the roster construction and just the way that they're playing baseball right now. Arizona State with Willie Bloomquist trying to get them back to the, premier program they used to be. I mean, they've got 5 national championships under their belt, right? But just none since 1989. So it's fun to have both these teams in the league now, and have them playing baseball at this level is really cool. And I'm looking forward to this matchup. I mean, the pitching that UCF has put forward this year from a depth perspective, I mean, you're talking about, Camden Wicker on Sundays has been great. Mateo Gray stepping in for Brendan Smith at the front of that rotation has been fantastic. You've got relievers like Evan Jones and Kevin Schoeneboom, and all of those guys are going to be tested by this Arizona State lineup that is one of the best profiles in the country, with Landon Hairston, New Contradas, Dominic Smaldino, and Dean Poigo. I mean, just the list goes on for Arizona's bats. That matchup is going to be really fun to watch. And similar to the TCU Oklahoma State series, we're going to see both those teams give their best efforts in this weekend.
Jamie Plunkett from Base 12 Sports is with us here on Big 12 today. I'm looking at a bracketology from a couple of days ago, but I see Cincinnati in, I see Oklahoma State, I see TCU. In terms of movement and Big 12 teams on the bubble, what can you share with us there and the importance of this weekend?
Yeah, this is a big weekend. You mentioned TCU and Oklahoma State both like trending in right now. I think a series win would really solidify either of their resumes, and a loss would push the other one closer to the bubble. When you think about a matchup like West Virginia and Kansas State, though, Kansas State's a team that, 2 weeks ago I thought would be a 2 seed in the tournament, and right now I think they're on the outside looking in with an RPI in the low 50s. So a series win at West Virginia would be huge for the Wildcats. This is turning into an interesting kind of bubble situation, though, for the Big 12. Baylor has lost ground recently. Cincinnati has gained ground recently. What do you do with a BYU who's got a really good conference record but has an RPI in the low 60s right now? Can they make up ground in the last few weeks and force their way onto the bubble? It's going to be interesting to watch this all play out. But this weekend, I think there are a couple opportunities for teams to really make a big move.
Jamie, is Kansas like a legit national championship contender?
I think so. I mean, I don't see how you could keep them out of that conversation at this point, just with the way that they're swinging the bat. Feels like every given weekend, someone else is stepping up in a big situation, whether that's Jordan Bach, Tyson Owens, Tyson LeBlanc. Obviously, Brady Ballinger is still around doing his thing.
Yeah.
And then on the pitching side, Dom Vagley is starting to look like the Dom Vagley of old over the last few weeks. And that's such a huge boost for the Jayhawks. I mean, when you see a team go on the road and sweep their rival like they did last weekend at Kansas State for the first time since 1963 or something like that, you've got to start to take notice. The resume they've put together, the talent that they've acquired under Dan Fitzgerald, the way he has that thing humming right now, absolutely, I think they're an Omaha contender, a title contender all the way.
Jamie, thanks for the sweep reference there as a Kansas State alum. What's going on with the Wildcats? Because, like you said, they got swept. They've lost 4 in a row. They're now 9-12 in Big 12 play.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, the offense is still one of the best in the conference. I think D. Kennedy, one of the premier bats in the league, if not the country. Guys like Carlos Vasquez and Shintaro Inoue and Bear Madliak, AJ Vasco, right? Like the offense has dudes. It's got legit guys. I think the pitching has really let them down at times, especially when you look at the bullpen. You think back not only to the sweep this past weekend, but the series loss to TCU a couple weeks ago at home. The bullpen really kind of let things get away from them late in ball games, and that cost them games. You've got Lincoln Sheffield, who's doing great things on the mound as from a starter perspective, but some dinged up, losing your Saturday guy, losing, a couple guys early in the year, banged them up a little bit, and I just don't think the bullpen specifically has been able to recover from that.
What else you watched for this weekend? Where are some upset potentials?
I know we just talked about Kansas and their title legitimacy, but then they've got Arizona coming to town, and I know that the Wildcats are down. The offense has a whole host of struggles, but that pitching staff is arguably one of the best in the country. You've got Owen Kramkowski, Luke Flott has turned into a really legitimate Friday guy. Smith Bailey, his sophomore year is looking just as good as his freshman campaign, if not better. And those guys are going to give you a chance to win ball games any given day. So if Arizona can do the things that they need to do from a starter perspective and generate a couple of runs, I think these are going to be three really low scoring ball games that could be competitive. So maybe there's a little opportunity for some upset there. And then looking at Waco as well, Texas Tech really kind of been down and out the last few weekends, not playing great baseball right now, but they can still hit with the best of them. And this is a Baylor team that's, I've been saying on my own show for a couple weeks now, trying to prove that they're ready to take that next step. If Baylor's pitching can step up, if the bats can step up outside of their big three, I would like to see them do that this weekend. But Texas Tech is a feisty team. They can score runs in bunches. And so there's maybe some upset potential there.
Jamie, how do we find your show, the Flyover League?
Anywhere you get your podcasts, just search the Flyover League. You can find it there. My buddy Noah Darling and I host that every Monday night. And then you can check out all the rest of my work over at base12sports.substack.com.
Awesome, man. Jamie Plunkett joins us each Friday during the baseball season. Jamie, have a nice weekend, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, gents. Take care.
Thanks, Jamie.
Jamie Plunkett covers TCU for Horned Frog Blitz and does so much more over at Base 12 Sports, Big 12 baseball stuff, co-host of the Flyover League. Nobody knows Big 12 baseball more than Jamie, and those guys do a fantastic job.
We picked a good year to really lean into Big 12 baseball.
Did we?
Yeah, couldn't have picked a better year, if I'm being honest.
Dude, KU's got some sick threads. Like, the uniform combos for KU are elite.
It's also really cool. Like, their stadium is right next to Allen Fieldhouse. So, like, from, like, a stadium backdrop standpoint, I mean, it's not the mountains that you get in Provo, but it's pretty cool to have Allen Fieldhouse as, like, your backdrop of your baseball stadium.
Yeah, it's awesome. And they're really good. Really good.
It's
National championship
got to be
contenders?
super annoying for everybody else.
Boy, you said it best. Coming up next, this could have been an email. We wrap up each and every week here on Big 12 Today with this. Could have been an email. Some of the most overhyped stories nationally from the week that was. He's Ari, I'm James. That's next on Big 12 Radio and Big 12 Studios.
Blitz coming, jailbreak, and they run the perfect play. It's small. He's big. He's down inside the 5 to the 1. BJ Payne tripped him up to save the touchdown. What an effort here.
And there it is. They fake the handoff and to the backside. And another tackle for loss at the 20, this time by BJ Payne. They tried to get the man on the edge on the far side, and BJ was having none of it.
It's always about how you finish. Kobe Williams hit by Payne. Second down. And he'll make you pay. Handoff. Parker gets stuffed, stays on his feet, and now is going to go down.
Well, play the drop. Hands off to Highshaw. Steps to an ankle tackle and rumbles below the 30. BJ Payne finally got him to the turf.
Kansas State going to try and put some pressure on it. Floor steps up, floats one toward the end zone, does not have a receiver there. And that's an interception to end the half. BJ Payne with his first interception of the year.
Fourth downs this year. A big one in this second half. Brown stopped originally, and the ball comes out. Is the play dead, though? The whistles came after the ball came out.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Eugene Rapay joined us in the first hour, breaking down everything in Ames with TJ Otzelberger's new top 10 contract. He's a beat writer for the Des Moines Register. And then Ben Portnoy, our interview of the day from Sports Business Journal, was with us in hour number 2. You can catch that later today. Starting at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 Central, we have our newcomer series highlighting the top 5 offensive linemen newcomers in the Big 12. And then Ben Portnoy on replay, so wall-to-wall coverage from all of our guests here on Big 12 today. We also had Jamie Plunkett, the staff writer for Base 12 Sports and host of the Flyover League. Each and every Friday, we wrap up the work week with This Could Have Been an Email, the most overhyped stories from the week that was.
Subject: Baby demands attention.
Okay.
Email: Aaron Rodgers is still mulling retirement. Wah! Wah! Pay attention to me. Wah! Wah! Dude! Either play or don't play, for the love of God. Why do we still give him attention? He's 42. He can barely walk. He's horrible. Yeah, so anyways.
When's the last
Is Aaron Rodgers going to be back?
When's the last time he started and finished a season? A decade ago?
Wasn't it last year?
Did he?
I don't know.
Threw a lot of interceptions, I know that.
Yeah, he didn't play well.
Arizona Cardinals connected to Aaron Rodgers. Could the Cards make a play for the veteran quarterback?
Just go away. This is... I mean, when he first did it that first time with the Packers, it was one thing. He was still at the top of his game. But my God, this is just a horrible saga that won't... It's the same thing every year. Will I or won't I? It's like he loves me not. He loves me not.
Like, what else is he trying to prove?
Prove or what? Just say you're coming back or not. Like, I don't really understand it.
Play until you're 50? He actually had a decent year last year. 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions for Pittsburgh, and he did play all 16. He played 16 games.
What was his completion percentage?
65%.
Okay.
65.7. The year before that, he played in all 17 games with the Jets. So maybe he is trying to prove that you can play until you're 50. He's played 33 games the last 2 years.
Look, just make his decision here, baby. That's it. Stop dragging this thing out. Either play or don't play. For the love of God. He's so indecisive. He's like my wife.
He's on one of those psychedelic retreats, bro. Just leave him alone.
Yeah, well, the psychs should tell you, the MDMA should tell you, like, make a decision here. Let's go.
When did he make his decision last year?
I don't know. I don't care, James. I read the email and then I deleted it. Baby demands attention. Wah! Wah!
That's well stated.
Pay attention to me.
Very well stated. Very accurate. I love it. All right, mine is the NBA draft lottery and the anti-tanking problem.
Oh my God.
On and on and on.
This could have been an email.
On. This very much could have been an email, but if it was, it'd still be confusing.
Yeah.
All the different scenarios. The latest proposal, the 3-2-1 lottery. This is a new anti-tanking reform. We're going to expand the lottery to 16 teams, flatten the odds so everybody can tank. And then the bottom 3 teams, they'll be penalized with fewer lottery balls for the number 1 pick. So the bottom 3 have less chances of landing the number 1 pick. As a Bulls fan, what does this say?
So one of the positives of living in Dallas is easy travel. Really easy to get in and out of Dallas, right? Finding direct flights. It's very centrally located. It's a great city to live if you're trying to go other places.
There's a billion flights anywhere you want to go.
Which is not exactly the best headline to like, oh, I live in Dallas. It's a great city because you can move, you can leave easily. So the reason I bring this up is because not a great sign when like the biggest, most impactful headlines around your sport during the playoffs are centered on how you stop teams from consciously losing games in order to get a better draft pick.
Right.
Like, it's the biggest story in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
And they haven't figured it out. how many years has lottery existed? And they've been trying to tweak and change. I mean, my God, they're changing the lottery system more than the All-Star game. Like, just figure it out and move on.
Totally.
Clearly, the incentive structure to be really bad is such that this is a problem. The incentive structure isn't changing. As long as you're drafting players, the incentive structure to be bad will continue to be like that.
Exactly. Like, how do you keep teams from playing their worst guys, turning the ball over, missing shots, and just being bad at basketball?
You know how you fix the lottery problem? You reduce the NBA season to 25 games. Is that going to happen?
Can't do that.
Nope. It's why the NFL doesn't have a problem. Teams tank, but there's not enough games to where it really matters.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like, as a Bears fan, there have been many a season where by October, I'm hoping for the team to lose so that they get a higher draft pick.
Didn't you attend an NBA game fairly recently?
Yeah, the last game of the regular season, the Bulls and the Mavs. It was a abomination.
How many starters were on the floor? Like regular starters?
I don't know how to define starters.
It's been that much tanking.
5 players started for each team. They found 5 guys to start. I don't know how many other NBA teams those 5 guys would start for.
Right. And now, like, if you look at teams and their rosters and, like, Basketball Reference, because it has every player that's played a minute or more for the entire season, there's so much roster movement. NBA rosters, you'll have, like, 30 dudes because they're bringing guys up, they're moving them down. The Chicago Bulls have played 28 players this season. There are 5 players on the floor at one time. They've played 28 guys this year.
Both of my boys have gotten very into the NBA this year, and so it's a little bit off-putting for me because I'm not used to watching the NBA. So they're all like, "Oh, let's," like they're always like, "Let's put the playoffs on." I'm like, "All right, let's do it." So we put the Knicks-Hawks game on, which, if you watched, was a 51-point game at halftime. So basically, in that stretch where the Knicks were up by 20 and then 30 and then 40, I said, "Hey, let's watch." I'm going to put YouTube on, and we're going to put on Game 5 of the 1997 NBA Finals, the flu game.
Banger.
We watched that instead. Instead of watching the NBA playoffs last night, my boys and I watched the flu game, Game 5 of the 1997 NBA Finals. I wish there was a way to get better quality HD level old NBA stuff because it was hard to watch. The other thing I noticed about old NBA games, and this is crazy to think about, like where sports used to not have the time and score on screen at all times. Like, we used to live in a world where you watched games and you had to wait for the score to be put up on screen.
Mm-hmm. After a made basket.
It was driving me insane. It was driving them insane. It's like, how do we not? We don't know what the score is. I'm like, it's crazy to think that this was like a thing. Like, it was a novelty when they were like, let's put the score up the entire time.
Dude, that's hilarious. I felt the same way. We put Game 6 of the 98 NBA Finals on. All the same thoughts you had. I was like, man, this picture was terrible. How did I watch this? That was the crossover, Michael pull-up over Byron Russell. Also, the pace of play. I will say the pace of play was driving me bananas. That was like a 98 to 97 final, mid-90s maybe. Same clock, same shot clock, same everything, but those teams ran slow, methodical. Ron Harper is walking the ball up the floor each and every possession.
There's no better indicator of how much the game has evolved and changed than that. You're totally right. Like, now it's a unique novelty for teams to be like that, but yeah.
And back then, I didn't think twice about it.
No.
It's like, what's going to happen on this next possession? Now, all of our ADHD brains, we can't handle it.
No, right. Go. Go too slow. Go, go, go.
Totally. T-Chains, you got a story?
I do. You guys have been talking about the NBA playoffs, but have you guys focused on the biggest NBA playoff series of this playoffs, the Warriors and the Grizzlies?
Tell me more. I thought you were going to say the Pistons and the Magic.
No, because the Warriors and Grizzlies actually aren't playing, but
I was going to say, are they
now I'm very confused.
There is a guy, 19-year-old Zinzi, who is a Grizzlies fan, decided to live tweet the fake Warriors-Grizzlies playoff game, and it got traction. It was trending number 9 on Twitter because people thought it was real, and then they found out it was fake. And technically, the Warriors won Game 5, and he is anticipating live tweeting the Grizzlies-Warriors fake series tonight, Game 6.
What, he's just like simulating the game?
Yeah, he's just making up stats and making them as it goes, making them as it layup. Could have been an email, but, kudos to him.
Hey, he got us. He got us all. What was the game you were texting us about? West Virginia, Oklahoma in the Crown. You were at the airport? West Virginia was playing Oklahoma in the Crown Championship. It was a replay of a game that had aired well over a day ago.
I think it was the semifinal that West Virginia played. I was at a bar in Indianapolis. And why would they be playing this game on, the morning of the national championship?
I've been there a million times.
Yeah. This could have been an email. The NFL draft ratings decline.
What?
Yes, so the 2026 audience fell from 13.6 million to 13.2 million.
Wait, 13.6 to 13.2?
Yeah, it's 400,000 people. It's a huge story. A lot of the articles I've seen written about this talk about the death of the NFL draft. 13 million people watched
a draft.
Maybe that's the headline there. 13 million, I wonder how many NBA playoff games it would take to get to 13 million.
I can tell you, 4. Because the NBA playoffs have been the most watched playoffs in the last 33 years, with an average of 3.9 million viewers per game.
Also, once again, want to note that from a ratings perspective, the way they measure ratings changed. They're now taking into account digital streaming in a way they didn't before. Which actually makes the draft one even more interesting, which means the numbers are even more down. But I attribute that to this being not a great draft. Next year, I think the numbers will be even higher.
Yeah, I don't see any other, lack of star power, maybe. I mean, Fernando Mendoza David Bailey going number 2. Who went number 3? Jeremiah Love. NBA, most watched NBA playoffs in 33 years. That'll distract us from the Tankathon. Everybody's watching the playoffs.
The lottery selection, I think, is next week. That'll be fun. Darren Peterson that goes number 1 or AJ DeBonsa?
Is Peterson going to go number 2?
So you think it's over?
I'm seeing Boozer.
I still think Darren Peterson's going to go number 1.
Number 1?
I do.
Wow. Just a hunch?
Yeah, look, I think teams will meet with him at the Combine. I think, teams will want to talk themselves into drafting Darren Peterson. I think he goes top overall. I do.
It is an elite draft class.
It's crazy to think, though, that had he not played a game for Kansas, he would have unquestionably been the number 1 pick.
Yeah. Doesn't play a game straight from high school, however you want to cut it. Well said. All right, that's our week here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. Special thanks to Anthony Smith on the video side. T-Chains on the audio side. We are back Monday, 8A to 11A. You can catch our show, 8A to 11A, each weekday Eastern Time. And then don't miss the replay of our newcomer series, Offensive Lineman, our interview of the day. That starts at 2 Eastern, 1 o'clock Central Time. Have a phenomenal weekend. Enjoy your camping trip.
Thank you.
We're out until Monday.
Peace.